Welcome to the ASTROLABE. It is Wednesday, February 19th, and I have got an ASTROLABE for you guys today. Be a show liker. Hit that like button. Straight Buster says, we're going to Hyperborea, boyos. That's right, we are. We're going to talk a little DOGE. $4.7 trillion in missing monies. We're going to talk about our poster-occupied government. It's extended beyond our king of the posters himself, and then the vice poster. It's extended beyond that. We've got cabinet officials just dragging people in public. It's excellent to see. Let's see here. We got Trump Napoleon posting. I forgot to mention that the other day, so I figured it's probably an important thing. We got the President Napoleon posting, and there's so much other stuff going on that it just kind of fell out of the news cycle fairly quickly, and I forgot about it. I got some comments from Trump talking about DOGE. We're going to talk about the housing market. If you guys, I don't think there's very many people. I've looked at the analytics. There aren't very many people who watch this show who do not watch or listen to Pete Quinones. For those of you who fall into that category, what on earth are you doing? You need to be listening to Pete Quinones. And he had a conversation about 10 days ago with one Stormy Waters, who longtime watchers of the show are familiar with, talking about the gambit that some of these just makes you want to Fed post. I'll just say these private equity firms, this gambit that they're pulling in the housing market, that needs to be headed off. It needs to be blocked. So I'm going to talk about some real estate related stuff, and then we're going to touch on the negotiations happening right now between the United States and Russia over the Ukraine war, and both what's happening and what's not happening. So I got a whole bunch of stuff to get through. Gonna get started. Do me a favor and hit the like button. And my wife says, "Wait, you're able to see the other things we listen to?" I am, yes. I'm able to see many things. I'm watching. Hit the like button, and a quick reminder, do a little shilling here right at the very beginning. Join the King Pill Discord. That's the place to be. When we talk about the real estate thing, I'm going to give you guys a few things that you can do. I happen to have a little bit of experience in that domain. And yesterday evening in the King Pill Discord, we were beginning to game plan. We're talking about some various different types of ventures that we can start doing collectively to build up our guys, to provide our guys with opportunities, to carve out opportunities for our guys and begin building up these patronage networks. Because I have a whole bunch of visions of what I want with the show, with this media operation that I'm developing around the show, and then with the it's not just me developing it. There are people working behind the scenes. And then the King Pill Discord. I've got visions for many of the things that I want to do with this, and we just need people who are invested, who are dedicated, who have the same vision, and who want to start building together. That's what the King Pill Discord is for. So kingpill.com is the place to go to join up there. And then if you like what I'm doing here, you can send a super chat. You can donate on buymeacoffee.com. You can even subscribe on a monthly basis there. And then what's the other thing? Oh, there's a Cash App link in the description. Also, King Pilled Substack. You can subscribe there if you'd like to support. If that's easy for you, you're already using Substack. That is an option. I'll be posting all of the links that I go through here today after the show on the King Pilled Substack. All right, let's start off. Let's hit the slop here to begin with. This is a very beautiful story. Everyone's talking about the bromance, but very few people have talked about where the bromance began. And if you're just listening to the audio here, then yeah, I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to go. You're gonna have to go to the King Pilled Substack and click the link and see, because this is a visually oriented bit here. But the bromance between Trump and Elon began in 2010. Look how proud he is. He's so proud of of his special boy. I don't think I have any clips from the Trump Elon Hannity interview. It was good. It was interesting. Nothing super clip worthy to me. Just it's worth watching. It's like 30 minutes, and you can get through it pretty quickly. And it's entertaining. It's definitely funny watching the way the two of them interact and kind of banter with each other. And Hannity had his hands full. So I recommend going and watching it, but I looked to see if there was any real clip-worthy parts, and I didn't think there were. This, however, is one that Mr. What does he call himself? Politically Catholic, Papal Orthodoxy, Poppy Libs for the OGs. This is one he tagged me in, and it's very good.
There's not a snowball's chance in hell that Canada will ever be the 51st state.
What say you, Mr. American Ambassador?
Fuck Canada! Go!
Shout out to Green Frog Labs for that one. Our beloved Leaf brothers out there, we bully you because we love you. We're gonna bully you into taking back your country, or perhaps just taking your country back for you and leaving you better off for it. This clip here came back across my timeline. I think I played it on the show a little while back, but it's very worthwhile. You guys, if you guys haven't seen this one, you're in for a treat. If you have, I'm sure you'll forgive me making you listen to it again. I don't think it's really going to hurt you that much.
Good evening, cowards. Nice to see a bunch of fat, ugly women.
What?
Excuse you.
What?
Can we skip the agenda?
No. I'm speaking. They're fat, ugly women is what they are. Let's talk about it.
We're not having that.
You don't have to. Bye.
That ain't free speech.
It's called free speech. Bye.
That's not free speech. That's insulting.
Bye. That's good.
Okay, everybody.
And we wonder why children are retarded stupid today. We wonder why.
Retarded.
We wonder why when we have these pathetic people here called teachers rape the children's mind. And if you people are too stupid to know what rape is, it's called control.
This is America. Bunch of fat, ugly women. The men are rising. Speaking of men rising, look at this absolute hero. We've been told that these young white men are good for nothing. They don't have any work ethic. They should be lucky. They should be fortunate to go work at a Panda Express or whatever. And look at this boy. Young Indiana dude walks 1 mile to deliver a pizza in the snowstorm and earns a $2 tip from the homeowner.
You delivering a pizza, bro? For who? No, who do you work for?
Rockstar.
What is it?
Rockstar Pizza.
Rockstar Pizza. Look at this.
Hell yeah.
A cop in Brownsburg, Indiana ran into a pizza delivery man trekking through a blizzard, only to find out he got a $2 tip on a $40 order. What happened next changed everything. Let me explain. Connor Stefanoff, a local pizza delivery driver, braved a half-mile trek through a blizzard to complete an order after the road was shut down. On his way back to his car, Stefanoff ran into police officer Richard Craig, who was shocked to discover the poor tip he received after going above and beyond to make the delivery.
Did you get a good tip?
$2.
Are you kidding me?
Officer Craig shares motivational content, mentorship, and community stories on his TikTok account @OfficerCraig, inspiring and educating his audience. After his interaction with Stefanoff, he knew he had to jump into action.
I ran back to the car. I'm a little winded. It's a lot. To give that man the cash that I had, because that's the right thing to do. What this young man just did, They're not required to do that.
In the video's caption, Officer Craig reveals he launched a GoFundMe to give Stefanoff the tip he truly deserved. The response was overwhelming. Nearly 2,000 people pitched in, raising over $40,000 to show their appreciation. Speaking to WRTV Indianapolis, Stefanoff said, "I still don't believe this is real, but it is." Ron Matthews, the owner of Rockstar Pizza, praised Stefanoff, calling him more than deserving of the support. Would you trek through a blizzard for a pizza delivery? Let us know in the comments.
What a young hero. I love this story. I could do with having the story be told by someone else. It was difficult listening to. But yeah, what a cool story. 40 grand out of that, like that's that dude's gonna go the extra mile a lot in his life going forward. That's right. Mr. Miranchuk now says this is civilization shit. Not only him walking a mile each way, or half mile, or whatever it was in the snow, to deliver the pizza. This is the work ethic of the young man. We're told that these guys are just too lazy to do anything. But he pulls up and he's like, fuck it, I'm just gonna hike. I'm gonna hike in the snow to deliver these people their pizza. Now I wonder what the pizza was like by the time he got. He looked like he had that like insulated bag. I don't know how well that actually insulates, but the audacity of those people, because there's no way they didn't know. There's no way they didn't like recognize that he'd hiked up there, and they gave him a $2 tip. Honestly, if he'd have just thrown the pizza at him after they gave him a $2 tip after he'd hiked out there, I would have been like, yeah, I mean, he's justified. But he didn't. He just took it and turned around and hiked all the way back out. And he got 40 grand out of it. Beautiful. This is America. Now, nothing in my life, nothing that I have previously experienced could have possibly prepared me for seeing at White House. This is the official White House Twitter account tweeting out illegal alien deportation ASMR. I've never felt more personally represented. Look at this, 41 seconds. Just whatever you're doing, just sit back, relax, and just listen. This came from the White House. Directly from the White House. Very obviously, our guys are running all the social media. Now, this just reminded me of something, and I just realized that this gets even better. Let me do a little bit of a search here, because I think I know exactly how this developed. And it's even more evidence that they're listening to us. Oh, come on. Come on now. I can't vamp through this too much, but I need to find this specific tweet because I saw someone who posted this just recently. Oh, come on. Okay. So they posted a video not too long ago. Let me see. Actually, I kind of work this the back way. Yeah, okay. So the White House Twitter account had posted a tweet, I don't know, a week ago, 2 weeks ago maybe, and they posted a tweet of just like outside the White House with the snow falling. And it was just quiet, just so you could hear like the wind blowing and the sound of the snow falling. And Logan Clark Hall, our boy from the Blaze, who got screenshotted by our president just recently when our president Napoleon posted, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. Logan Clark Hall quote tweeted it and said something about ASMR. about like the title. He gave like he was like memeing and gave like a title like the what you would call the YouTube video, and it was something about ASMR. And I saw that when it came by. I was like, haha, that's pretty funny. You know, that's a good tweet. And then like a week later, right after the president posts on his Truth Social a screenshot of Logan Clark Hall with Trump's face edited onto a Napoleon picture of Napoleon on a majestic steed reared back. And right after that, Logan Clark Hall is posting, quote tweeting them talking about ASMR videos, and then they post an illegal alien deportation flight ASMR video. So if I'm putting the pieces together here, I think whoever's running this account saw that, and they were like, hey, we should do an ASMR video. Well, what should the ASMR video be? Let's do illegal alien deportation flight ASMR. The absolute audacity of this. The libs are so angry. They're so mad about this. Wait, this is just cruelty. They're exulting in the cruelty. Yes, it makes us very happy when we see the people who have been inflicted upon us chained up and flown out of the country. The people who are here illegally, who are plundering us, committing crimes. They're criminals by definition. By the very dint of the fact that they are here. They are criminals. So yes, it warms my heart when I see criminals who have not been treated like criminals being treated like criminals. This is precisely what I voted for. This is also what I voted for. Look at this. This is from the White House account. Long live the king. And this is from a post by Trump on Truth Social. He says, congestion pricing is dead. Manhattan and all of New York is saved. Long live the king. Trump himself tweeted, long live the king. I don't know what this means. What? Is he calling himself the king? If so, based. This is, I don't even know. He's Napoleon posting. He's posting, long live the king, about himself. Bros, is it happening? Are we experiencing a happening? It sure seems like it. I mean, I could give a shit what this actual subject is. Congestion pricing. I know Manhattan has their like congestion pricing thing that's supposed to, they're like charging people like $40 a day or something to go into the city. Frankly, I have a hard time caring about Manhattan, so sorry if I don't know the details about it. And I mean, I don't know what the executive branch, I don't know what the federal government has to do with the city of New York and congestion pricing. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what the legal theory is behind this. Frankly, I don't care. If this was just an excuse to post this, if they're out here coming up with policies, let's do this thing here so we can post long live the king. Perfect. Great. This is wonderful. This is epic. And of course, you know, all the usual characters here are very upset. Objectively, the most un-American White House in our history. Yeah, suck on it, Timothy Bellman. Cope and seethe. And dilate. Now, this was the post on, what was this? Is that Saturday? On Saturday, Trump posted, "He who saves his country does not violate any law," which is famously a quote from Napoleon. Now, Bill Kristol, that gigantic fat loaf of unbaked bread, doughy, flabby dipshit, said something like, this sounded better in the original German, proving that the regime is populated by the biggest retards in the world. But Vagrant of Rhodes, powerful poster. I mean, what are the odds? Like, we've already got our guys posting. Let's get guys like Vagrant of Rhodes, one of our great posters, get him a staff position at the White House. like undersecretary of posting. Give him some role where he literally is paid an exorbitant taxpayer-funded salary to post bangers. I would be just fine with that expenditure. He says, Trump quoting Napoleon is a great political Rorschach test. Leftists are legitimately incapable of higher thought and complex spiritual emotions or passions of the blood. Everything they do is a cheap, corporatized facsimile of existence. Even their hatred of us comes from a fake place. We just make them uncomfortable and they want us to go away, like children plugging their ears and throwing a tantrum. Their bloodlust against us is not that of the warrior, but that of the coward. They don't know what true greatness is, and they cannot feel it or understand it. As a result, they fear all manner of greatness and work tirelessly to suppress it in the general population, including themselves, as it represents a threat to their geriatric gynocratic system. They can't relate to the swell of emotion that a man feels when imagining himself in a cavalry charge to the death. They can't appreciate the soulful last stand of a lost cause. They can't understand the fire and the blood of man, which is ignited by the love of God, king, and country. They have no respect for people other than themselves and seek to make the world entirely like them by flattening human existence via tightly controlling, oppressively bureaucratic systems. They can't understand the romantic side of our nature, which is as close to God as we can be, because it means humbling oneself and understanding that we are clay in the hands of our Creator. They see themselves as cosmic accidents and resent the emotions that come with existence in this plane. They make themselves and the world around them small and dreamless in order to soothe their insecurities and misery. Their understanding of human emotions, respect, love, etc. is all totally perverted, to the point that they can't even appreciate stories without trying to over-rationalize or explain them into the pointless oblivion of mediocrity. They simply cannot fathom a truly inspiring leader, fighting to the death to protect your family and traditions, or feeling a deeply profound sense of loyalty to the blood and land of your ancestors. Such eternal passions are beyond the leftist mind's capabilities, which relies upon authority and feminist social approval to display any opinions or feelings. In seeing this interesting bit of revealing discourse, I'm reminded of the story from the election when J.D. Vance said he wanted his children to eventually be laid to rest in the same grave as his forefathers. Liberals immediately reacted with visceral disdain and even called this simple wish of his fascist. This is ultimately how the leftist views the world, as a constant threat to the self-imposed mediocrity of their anti-human ideology. They resent themselves more than anything in the world and project that anger into those of us who refuse to indulge their small-mindedness. Trump quoting Napoleon scares them because it proves their system of suppression not only failed, but that it will be brought down by the very thing they hate and fear the most in this world: true human greatness, which is bestowed to men by God. Trump is single-handedly breaking this illusion of the post-war order apart and showing us that we can all be great in our own ways, large and small, from the commander of an empire to a soldier running a message across the battlefield, from the President of the United States to the families sleeping in a tent in their hurricane-ruined home in North Carolina. Greatness is an essential part of the human spirit, and it will no longer be denied. That is what the left fears more than anything. That is what has triggered their petulant anger. The left has wanted to kill the world since its political birth out of its profound sense of resentment against the good things in the world. But great men continue to rise to tell them no. We will no longer suppress this aspect of our souls. We will strive to be great, and in so doing we will save our world from the predations of the anti-human scum who seek our doom. Loki Juliana says, leftism is basically like, okay, how can we prevent the next great man of history? And Orrin McIntyre says, liberalism requires the end of history, which requires the end of great men, and therefore the end of greatness and men in general. And then Malms Berryman, quoting Pascal Emmanuel Gobry, go listen to him on Orrin McIntyre just recently, based Frenchman. He says, Macron could be the emperor of Europe now if he wanted. And Mom's Berryman says, Macron is the closest thing to a great man that the radical center can throw up. But the best he can do is hold meetings because radical centrism exists to prevent politics from taking place, to hide from history in an endless series of dilatory dialogues among stakeholders. We have the best posters. Harry Bergeron, another powerful mutual. He says 100%, even in the video the other day when Clay Travis told the woman on the right, told the women on the right men admire Trump's masculinity, especially after the shooting. She said, but he's like a grandpa. I just fucking told you what I like and why I like it, you stupid hag. You don't get to disagree. We have the greatest posters. Through our posters, we are going to dominate the next era of history. Here's another one. Andrew Ferguson, the new FTC chairman. Pete Quinones says, Ferguson just wrecking people. So you got Alvaro Bedoya, the official count of FTC Commissioner Alvaro Bedoya. He says, Dear everyone who just went to the grocery store and saw this, there's a person in the government who could flick his pen and start an investigation into what the hell is going on with eggs. His name is Andrew Ferguson. He's the new head of the FTC. Has he done it? No. You've got Trader Joe's here apparently is out of eggs. And so, Andrew Ferguson replies, Since you were on the commission for much of the Biden-Harris administration, I assumed you knew that eggs and poultry are traditionally within DOJ's enforcement domain, not the FTC's. I also assumed that's why, for years, you did absolutely nothing about rising egg prices. The price of eggs surged under Biden. The whole country suffered. But you launched no investigations, no lawsuits, no studies, nothing about eggs. Now we get posts. Do you need a reminder that the avian flu crisis started on your watch? It seems like you do. I'd love to discuss this stuff with you in person, but I don't see you in the office much. I do see you post lots of Democrat agitprop with your blue sky friends remotely. Since you spend a lot of time on social media, I'll lay out some basic facts here. The Biden-Harris administration killed more than 100 million chickens. When you kill a lot of chickens, you get fewer eggs. President Trump's administration opposes Biden's mass killing of chickens for this reason and has proposed alternative safety measures. That's a good start. But farmers can't just snap their fingers and rebuild their flocks. It takes the better part of a year to repopulate a flock, and that's how long it takes when our farmers aren't dealing with Biden killing their birds. And what did you do about this Biden-Harris egg crisis? Absolutely nothing. And here's the kicker. The Senate asked you 2 years ago to investigate rising egg prices. Check out this letter from Senator Reid. So did the same group whose work you quoted and screenshotted. Check out their letter. And he's got the receipts here. Instead, you used precious taxpayer dollars to bring a lawsuit claiming grocery prices were too low. That's right, you filed a lawsuit 3 days before Biden left office trying to raise grocery prices. Where was your concern about egg prices then? Maybe you're not vetting your own posts, but your account posted a 3-year-old paper about poultry consolidation in the EU featuring a case study about India. What does that have to do with American egg markets? Not much. We import almost no eggs or egg-laying chickens. You readily admit you are not, quote, an ag antitrust expert. Neither am I, but I bothered to read before I posted. Americans suffered for 4 years under Biden-Harris inflation. You did nothing to help them. Your screed 1 month after President Trump took office is just performative politics. That's why the American people tossed your party out of power. Americans don't want public officials whining like children on social media after years of doing nothing. They want adults who will try to fix their problems. The adults are getting back to work. I suggest you do the same. Lord have mercy. We've got posters all over the administration now. And they're just dragging people in public. It is so good to see. Mela says Postmaster General. That's so good. Oh, it looks like it came from Anonymous Adonis first. That's so good. The post office. Secretary of memes. Oh, this is so good. And another one. So, this insidious faggot here says the flying public needs answers. How many FAA personnel were just fired? What positions and why? And Sean Duffy replies, Mayor Pete failed for 4 years to address the air traffic controller shortage and upgrade our outdated World War II-era air traffic control system. In less than 4 weeks, we have already begun the process and are engaging the smartest minds in the entire world. Here's the truth. The FAA alone has a staggering 45,000 employees. Less than 400 were let go, and they were all probationary, meaning they'd been hired less than a year ago. 0 air traffic controllers and critical safety personnel were let go. Mayor Pete chose to use this amazing department that is so critical to America's success as a slush fund for the Green New scam and environmental justice nonsense. Not to mention that over 90% of the workforce under his leadership were working from home, including him. The building was empty. When we finally get a full accounting of his mismanagement, I look forward to hearing from him. In the meantime, I will not rest until I return the Department of Transportation and its incredible employees to its mission of efficiency and safety. Just one after another. Pretty soon, these people, they're going to stop, like, mouthing off in public. Because every single time they do, they just get dragged. Absolutely obliterated. Nuked from orbit. The public square. You know, remember people used to say that Twitter doesn't matter, X isn't real life, whatever? It is. This is where politics is happening now. And you know what? It's ours. All the libs have been bullied into obscurity. They don't even get to be the part of the conversation anymore. What's happening to Zelensky right now? We'll get into more of that later. What's happening to Zelensky right now, where the negotiations are happening and they're not even included, that's what's happening to the libs. The debate right now, the public debate, to whatever extent that there is a public debate, you know what I mean? The question is, are we going to have extreme far right or are we going to have moderate right? The libs are BTFO'd. It wouldn't be an episode of the ASTROLABE if I didn't have a bullying journos clip. This is for Samoa Bob. I saw him in the chat here. He says, FBI about to be headed by a poster too. Oh, yeah. Oh, man, I can't wait till Kash Patel, because obviously he's locked everything down. All these guys, they shut things down while they're going through the nomination process, and then once they get confirmed, Kash Patel is going to be uncorking some absolute heaters, and I can't wait to see it. Oren McIntyre says, if you don't love this, you don't have a pulse. Here you go, Samoa Bob. Here is your bullying journos clip for the day.
Associated Press just refuses to go with what the law is and what is taking place. It's called the Gulf of America now. It's not called the Gulf of Mexico any longer. I have the right to do it, just like we have the right to do Mount McKinley, and nobody's even.
I have the right to do it.
But only the essentially, it's primarily the Associated Press, and I don't know what they're doing, but I just say that we're going to keep them out until such time as they agree that it's the Gulf of America. We're very proud of this country, and we want it to be the Gulf of America. Now, the Associated Press, as you know, has been very, very wrong on the election, on Trump and the treatment of Trump and other things having to do with Trump and Republicans and conservatives. And they're doing us no favors, and I guess I'm not doing them any favors. That's the way life works. But thank you for the question. Who are you with?
They're not doing me any favors, and I guess I'm not doing them any favors either. That's just how life works. Suck it up and deal with it, libs. Now, a little immigration state of things. This is from Geiger Capital. He says, holy shit, I thought this was a typo. In just January, 1 million immigrants, legal and illegal, gained a job. Meanwhile, native-born Americans gained just 8,000. All net job gains post-COVID are immigrants. This is why they opened the border. This is employment level for foreign-born and native-born, starting from 2007, January of 2007. Red is foreign-born. Blue is native-born. And honestly, almost as shocking to me, visually, looking at this graph, is not, like, yeah, the divergence between native-born and foreign-born is shocking. Look at the absolute cratering during COVID. That's astonishing. There's no way. There's no way that you could have something like this happen and not have ripple effects that are going to be just catastrophic for years afterwards. And then ever since, you could see there was this gradual increasing importation of illegals, and then it just went nuclear after COVID, where native-born just kind of returned to previous levels. He says, I specifically note legal plus illegal immigrants because the government does not separate the two groups in their data for foreign-born workers. However, based on the numbers, a large percentage are certainly illegal immigrants. Zero Hedge is also on it. Since 2019, native-born workers is down 700,000. Foreign-born workers is up 4.5 million. This is straight-up invasion. There's no other way to put it. This is just invasion. It's ethnic cleansing. Now, I know a lot of people, the black pillars, have been looking for their thing to jump on, and they found a thing. Oh, the deportations aren't good enough. See, I told you he was going to cuck out. You guys got had. Now, yes, the deportations have not been enough. But if you've been paying any attention at all, you would know that Trump is very unhappy that the deportations haven't been enough yet. Tom Homan is very unhappy that the deportations haven't been enough yet. Something is obstructing them. And a powerful mutual, actually, I don't think he's a mutual, but a powerful poster of ours, who has caught the eye of J.D. Vance in the past, is offering himself. And I want to amplify this here. Why does it say I'm not following him? It does this from time to time. I don't know why. Josiah Lippincott says President Trump has privately expressed serious disappointment with the pace of deportations and the lack of competence among the leadership staff at Immigration and Customs Enforcement. In light of those criticisms, I wish to volunteer my services to the president. In particular, I'm offering to serve as the Executive Assistant Director of Enforcement and Removal Operations at ICE. I have the leadership ability, knowledge, and experience to ensure that ERO fulfills the president's demands. Under my guidance, I promise to increase deportations to more than 3,000 illegal migrants a day within 3 months, more than tripling the current pace of removals. Before explaining the strategy, it will be useful to explain what ERO is and how deportations work. And there's a headline here from NBC News. Trump is angry that deportation numbers are not higher. It says, the quote from the source says, arrests and deportations of undocumented people are lower. Undocumented people, legally they are called illegal aliens, are lower than what President Donald Trump has promised, and that is, quote, driving him nuts, one source told NBC News. Continuing with the thread. Most Americans know about immigration and customs enforcement. What many of them do not realize is that ICE is actually bifurcated into two operational directorates. On paper, ICE has 20,000 agents, but in reality, more than half are part of Homeland Security investigations, the little-known investigative arm of the Department of Homeland Security. HSI is not primarily focused on enforcing immigration law simply, but on what may be called criminal migrants, legal and illegal aliens who commit serious crimes once on American soil. This means that only ERO and its 6,100 personnel are charged with actually removing non-criminal illegal migrants from the country. Biden hamstrung the agency. In fiscal year 2024, they removed only arrested 113,000 illegal immigrants. Is that they arrested only or removed only? They arrested 113,000, which is a 33.5% decrease from fiscal year 2023. Although shifts in arrest numbers are driven by multiple complex factors, many of ERO's resources throughout fiscal year 2024 were concentrated on processing and removing non-citizens at the southwest border, limiting interior law enforcement actions. This focus on border cases impacted routine interior enforcement operations. Continuing. Most of these individuals were hardened criminals. ERO, in other words, was only enforcing immigration laws selectively against the, quote, worst of the worst. Under Biden, no one was working to deport illegal immigrants as such. ERO spends the bulk of its $4.1 billion budget on detaining illegal immigrants. Of this, only 419 million was used to transport illegals, and of that, only a fraction was used to actually deport these people from the country. He's got the receipts here. In fact, Biden's ERO spent more money on free health care for illegal immigrants in ICE custody than on deporting them from the country. DOGE should get on this. And it says here, during fiscal year 2024, IHSC's operating budget approached $421.5 million, and IHSC provided direct care, including medical, mental, and dental health services, to over 138,000 non-citizens housed at 18 IHSC staff facilities throughout the United States over the course of more than 1.3 million visits. Mental health services. Free mental health services for illegals. ERO knows who the illegals are, though. They're tracking more than 7.6 million illegals in the country, including 1.5 million who already have deportation orders. This is where I come in. As Executive Assistant Director of ERO, I will bring much needed change. First, I will ensure that ERO's resources are used to deport any and all migrants with a final deportation order. Under my watch, these individuals will never be allowed to leave federal custody once ordered removed. Deportation is an entirely administrative function that belongs wholly to the executive branch. Illegal aliens have no right to a jury trial. Their right to due process is limited to a reasonable judgment by immigration officials that they are not American citizens. Put simply, if we want to deport someone, we absolutely can. And under my leadership, we will. Right now, lots of American jurisdictions are in violation of federal immigration law. This is a problem, but not insurmountable. I will work with loyal counties and state law enforcement to remove any and all illegal aliens that they encounter. I will work with Pam Bondi and the DOJ to deputize these loyal officials to enforce immigration law. This will expand ERO's reach. Thousands of illegal aliens make contact with law enforcement every day. I will ensure that these individuals are arrested and removed from the country. Under Biden, illegal aliens spent, on average, 50 days in ICE custody. This is ridiculous and unnecessary. Once we identify that someone is an illegal, we can deport them, simple as. Yamatai v. Fisher from 1903 affirmed this to be the case. Executive Assistant Director of Enforcement and Removal Operations is typically not an appointed position by the President. It isn't in the Plum Book. This is part of the problem. The President deserves to have subordinates who are loyal to him and to his agenda. As Chief Executive, he is able, under the Constitution, to appoint who he likes to federal service. The Civil Service Reform Act of 1978 is unconstitutional. President Trump can and should appoint who he likes to the federal service. He is the one charged by the Constitution to, quote, take care that the laws be faithfully executed, end quote. And he alone is the chief executive. Quote, the executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States of America. I am loyal to the president, understand what needs to be done, and have the logistical background to deliver results. Deportation is easy. The Immigration and Nationality Act gives extremely wide latitude for the executive branch to deport illegal aliens. Federal officials who insist that deportations are difficult or administratively complex are slow-walking the process and are not fulfilling their oaths to the Constitution. ERO has the resources right now to deport 1 million migrants a year. Again, this is simply a logistical problem. Law enforcement encounter illegals all the time. It is easy to deputize these officers to give them the power to enforce immigration law. It is easy to issue a final deportation order against an illegal. It does not require an actual trial to do so. It is easy to deport migrants. Just load them on planes and drop them off. All of this is easy. It just requires willpower. That is what I'm offering to Donald Trump, willpower. And he tagged Vance and Stephen Miller. This must happen. We've learned you can just do things. We already have an administration full of posters. Our guys are in there. Let's get Josiah in there. Imagine how epic that would be. He posts this thread, gets on the radar of the right people. He gets appointed to this position, and the libs completely melt down. And there's nothing they can do about it. Demoralize the hell out of them. All right, let me keep it pushing here. So DOGE tweeted out, the Treasury Access Symbol, or TAS, is an identification code linking a Treasury payment to a budget line item, standard financial process. In the federal government, the TAS field was optional for approximately $4.7 trillion in payments, and was often left blank, making traceability almost impossible. As of Saturday, this is now a required field, increasing insight into where money is actually going. Thanks to U.S. Treasury for the great work. $4.7 trillion in payments that are effectively untraceable. Jeffrey Tucker makes an appearance. He says, to be clear, the government was spending $4.7 trillion without any documentary requirement that it was connected to an approved budget item. I'm trying to wrap my brain around this. It suggests that congressional budgets signed by the president were a kind of fiction or a wish list, while the U.S. Treasury did mostly what it wanted to do. It's like the entirety of the whole budget thing has always been a big fake. And Elon replied to him, said, totally insane. $4.7 trillion. Just effectively untraceable. Who knows what it was for? Might not even ever be able to find out what it was for. I said this in an episode not that long ago, but you cannot comprehend how much money $4.7 trillion is. $1 trillion. It's literally impossible for you to understand how much money that is. I think, if I remember right, I think $1 trillion in $100 bills would be something like 3 football fields stacked up to 8 feet high. It was somewhere in that vicinity. Maybe it was 1 football field stacked up to 8 feet high. It doesn't matter. Like, this is an unfathomable amount of money. And 4.7 trillion of it, effectively just untraceable. This is crime on just an unfathomable level. And it goes to show that all of this leftism is really just fake. Like, there's plenty of people who decided they believe in it after they were bludgeoned with propaganda for decades. But the overwhelming majority of this is just fake. It's the definition of astroturfed. It's not real. There was money on a scale that you cannot wrap your mind around, just flooding out constantly to make it seem like this was real. But there's no there. The U.S. Treasury can't track, this is from Vile Texan, the U.S. Treasury can't track $4.7 trillion in payments. Medicare sent $2.7 trillion overseas to people that weren't eligible. Pentagon lost track of $2.5 trillion. Social Security sends $100 billion a year to people with no identity. Probably more than that. Department of Education spends $50 billion a year to make your kids gay. Probably more than that. USAID spends $50 billion a year to make everybody else gay. Probably more than that. That's over 1/3 of the national debt right there, and it's only been 3 weeks. This is all blatant fraud. And libs are defending this. Nobody voted for Elon and DOGE. The fuck I didn't. This is exactly what I voted for. I want my fucking money back. I want to see some fucking perp walks. I want to make sure this never happens again. And I said if half the federal debt is fraudulent at minimum, continuing to tax the citizenry is the definition of criminality. It's time for a tax revolt. There is no reason for us to continue to be taxed for all this. Now, along those lines, there's an interesting proposal. Again, you can just do things. You can just post, and things might happen. This from James Fishback. Never heard of this guy before. Invest Azoria CEO, Incubate Debate founder. He said President Trump and Elon Musk should announce a DOGE dividend, a tax refund check sent to every taxpayer, funded exclusively with a portion of the total savings delivered by DOGE. And I'll read from their proposal. The case for a DOGE dividend, from James Fishback, CEO of Azoria. Few in America knew precisely what to expect from DOGE. The early perceived turbulence around leadership, the uncertainty around legal structure, and the lack of precedent for such a bold initiative created a sense of show me with DOGE. Just a month into President Trump's second term, DOGE is delivering. Full stop. With DOGE reportedly achieving $1 billion in savings per day, President Trump has an opportunity to work with Congress to take DOGE one step further and deliver what we at Azoria call the DOGE dividend, a tax refund check to be sent after the expiration of DOGE in July 2026, funded exclusively with a portion of the total savings delivered by DOGE. Here's how President Trump's DOGE dividend works. 1. DOGE is targeting $2 trillion in total savings. Take 20% of DOGE's total savings, $400 billion, and return it to the approximately 79 million U.S. households that will be net payers of federal income tax in 2025 as a tax refund check called the DOGE dividend. $400 billion in DOGE-driven savings divided by 79 million tax-paying households equals a $5,000 DOGE dividend check per tax-paying household. The benefits of President Trump's DOGE dividend, which we explore in more detail below. First, compensates American taxpayers for the egregious misuse and abuse of their hard-earned tax dollars that DOGE has uncovered. Second, shares the benefits of DOGE's cost savings with American taxpayers, incentivizing them to report instances of waste, fraud, and abuse to DOGE, which increases the total amount DOGE saves and increases the size of their DOGE dividend check. President Trump's DOGE dividend works to restore public trust between taxpayers and their government, making good on this social contract and increasing tax morale. The conditional nature of the tax refund, available only to payers of federal income tax in 2025, incentivizes labor force participation because only net payers of federal income tax in 2025 are eligible to receive President Trump's DOGE dividend. Benefit 1, the value of restitution, righting the wrong done to the taxpayer. While roads and bridges in the American heartland crumbled and countless veterans were denied health care, USAID used taxpayer dollars to feed al-Qaeda-affiliated fighters in Syria, finance electric vehicles in Vietnam, and fund sex changes in Guatemala. Taxation is an implied bilateral contract between taxpayer and government. Taxpayers work hard and pay their taxes, and in exchange, government renders services with accountability, honesty, and fairness. American taxpayers held up their end of the bargain, but as DOGE has exposed, the federal government did not, effectively breaching its implied contract with approximately 79 million tax-paying households throughout the United States. When a breach of this magnitude happens in the private sector, the counterparty, at minimum, refunds the customer since they failed to deliver what was promised. It's high time for the federal government to do the same and refund money back to taxpayers given what DOGE has uncovered. Benefit 2, sharing the benefits of cost-cutting with the taxpayer. President Trump's DOGE dividend creates a mechanism to cut the taxpayer in on the benefits of spending cuts. By pre-committing to pay out a specified percentage of savings, 20%, taxpayers now benefit directly from spending cuts. With the DOGE dividend, every tax-paying American now stands to benefit from DOGE. As such, they have every incentive to report every instance of government waste, fraud, and abuse that they encounter. This incentive will massively increase the surface area for DOGE to find opportunities to cut costs, further driving up DOGE's total savings and, in turn, the size of President Trump's DOGE dividend for taxpayers. Benefit 3, boosts tax morale. President Trump's DOGE dividend can work to increase tax receipts by boosting tax morale. Tax morale in the political science literature is a measure of taxation sentiment, whether taxpayers feel they are receiving adequate value in exchange for their tax payments. The literature has found that tax morale is directly linked to public trust and public-facing, quote, output government organizations that implement and deliver public goods to the citizenry, end quote. The federal government has undermined this trust by neglecting American citizens at home and funding boondoggles in distant lands instead. President Trump has a historic opportunity to restore this trust by refunding taxpayers for the breach of contract perpetrated against them. Benefit 4, incentivizing 2025 labor force participation. Finally, President Trump's DOGE dividend will work to increase labor force participation by requiring individuals to be net payers of federal income tax to be eligible to receive their DOGE dividend check. As just one example, 7 million working-age men in America are neither working nor looking for work. Reminder, 7 million working-age men in America are neither working nor looking for work. Go back to the graph that I showed just a few minutes ago from Geiger Capital about how since 2019, minus 700,000 native-born jobs versus 4.5 million foreign-born new jobs. The prospect of a $5,000 DOGE dividend in 2026 will incentivize many to re-enter the labor force in 2025 in order to be eligible for the DOGE dividend. Low labor force participation is throttling U.S. economic growth, and the DOGE dividend will provide a powerful incentive to begin reversing this trend on the margin. And then a couple of FAQs. Question 1, wouldn't this be inflationary? Azoria answered no for 2 important reasons. 1, DOGE dividend checks are exclusively funded with DOGE-driven savings, unlike COVID stimulus checks, which were deficit financed. And 2, DOGE dividend checks are sent only to tax-paying households who have a demonstrated propensity to save, not spend, the incremental dollar received. The DOGE dividend is different from past stimulus checks, e.g. the 2021 American Rescue Plan, because only tax-paying households receive it. Tax-paying households are more likely to save, not spend, a transfer payment like the DOGE dividend, as consumption is a lower share of their income. In fact, according to a 2019 CNBC survey, 7 in 10, or 71% of Americans who unexpectedly received a $5,000 bonus would either, quote, pay off debt, save it for short-term expenditures or emergencies, or invest in long-term goals like college or retirement. There's nothing inflationary about paying off debt, saving for emergencies, or investing in college or retirement. In fact, debt paydowns are actually deflationary. Question 2, won't the DOGE dividend increase the deficit? Azoria answer, no, for 2 reasons. First, President Trump's DOGE dividend is contingent on spending cuts. It is truly a tax refund in the most literal sense. It is financed exclusively via spending cuts. Since Azoria's plan calls for paying out 20% of the savings DOGE identifies, with the rest used to pay down the national debt, the value of spending cuts must exceed the value of President Trump's DOGE dividend payouts by a factor of 5. 2, medium term, President Trump's DOGE dividend can actually drive up tax receipts by increasing tax morale and restoring trust between taxpayers and their government. There's a PDF here from what I just read.
Taxpayers like you
and then
DOGE.
This is the man himself talking about it.
DOGE is having an incredible couple of weeks under President Trump's leadership and Elon Musk's execution. But here's what we have to do to take this mission one step further. 80% of the DOGE money saved needs to go to paying down the national debt, and the other 20% needs to go right back to the same people who sent it to DC in the first place, taxpayers like you and me. DOGE is set to save $2 trillion over the next 2 years. There are 78 million tax-paying households in America. That means that $25,000 per household is what's being saved by DOGE. 20,000 of that goes towards the national debt, and the other 5,000 needs to go right back to households in the form of a DOGE dividend, a check saying that the federal government misused your funds, we abused them, we sent it to the transgender opera in Colombia, we did not do right by you, and now it is the beginning of earning public trust. Just like a company has a money-back guarantee on a product that doesn't necessarily fit its description, our tax dollars were supposed to be used for America, not for other countries. DOGE uncovered the waste, fraud, and abuse, the absolute egregious use of funds. Now it's time to refund those tax payments back to the people. Use it to pay down the national debt. That's how President Trump and Elon take the DOGE mission full circle, and it's just icing on the cake.
This dude needs to get into audiobook reading, because he has got himself a hell of a voice. Now, I'll add to this. Straight Buster says, net payers of income tax. Interesting wording. Yes, those who know what sort of demographic net payers of income tax is overwhelmingly. Now, I'll add to this that the proposal of something like this dropping in 2026 from a political standpoint would be, I think, more significant than the actual dollar amount itself. Because at the end of the day, $5,000 is really not that much. It does align all the incentives very well. Like, we want to get more cuts because the more cuts we get, the larger the money that we're going to get back. And so the people who want their gibs are going to be even more, like if you were to really popularize something like this and people were to start thinking about it, like looking forward to my refund, then they're going to be even more supportive of the DOGE effort. You're also having to force Democrats into a position where they either have to like campaign against this openly. They have to come up with some galaxy-brained reason about why this would be a bad thing. And leading up directly up to a midterm, they're going to have to like counter-signal people getting tax refunds. And so politically, I think this would, leaving aside the actual financial implications, is it inflationary, is it not inflationary, should the money, I've seen some people say, oh, well, you're just going to take this money and give it to people and they're just going to blow it on degeneracy. Fuck off. Like, I understand like where you're coming from, but just shut up. This is a very stupid thing to think and say. No, people shouldn't get tax refunds because they're just going to blow it on degeneracy. What are you saying about the net taxpayers? Like, you can't, this is it's politically, socially, just a total non-starter. It's a thing that autistic people can say to each other, and that's it. Counter-signaling something like this on the basis of, oh, people are just going to blow that money, so they shouldn't get a tax refund. What the fuck are you talking about? Now, I do think that the way that there are other better ways to give a tax refund, and I think that they're going to come. One very interesting one. I'm not gonna spoil it because I want you to go listen to this entire episode. But P. Quinones just dropped an episode with Tom Luongo yesterday, and Tom suggested, based on stuff that Scott Bessent has said, a absolutely fascinating way that they could effectively give tax refunds, effectively have the government, the federal government, pay people's income taxes. But I'm gonna leave it to you to go listen to that and hear. It's right toward the very end. It's worth the wait. Anything Tom Luongo is on is absolutely worthwhile. But then the meta of this is also just is so heartening to me that you can have a guy come up with an idea like this, put it together, very well conceived proposal, drop it on the timeline, a bunch of people signal boost it, and Elon Musk replies to him and says, I didn't show it to you, but there was a tweet here. He replied to him and said, we'll check with the president. And then it reached the breaking news level. Patrick Webb says Elon Musk is considering sending all U.S. taxpayers $5,000 checks from DOGE savings, according to Forbes. Cat Turd says, do it. Elon replied to him and said, I never mentioned a specific dollar figure. Just said that I would see if the president wanted to consider a tax reduction linked to DOGE savings. He may or he may not. Again, Elon here, very, very wise. He knows who the big boss is, and he's going out of his way to publicly indicate who the big boss is. He says the amount would therefore obviously be proportionate to how much savings DOGE actually achieves. More savings would mean a bigger tax reduction. The top DOGE priority remains, however, reducing the deficit to stop inflation and lower people's interest rates. So I think I don't, like, I'm not married to this idea. I think this idea is pretty brilliant. I think it could work very well from the, like, I think the, like, labor force participation, I don't think that's not going to be a huge motivator. I think the most value that you would get from something like this is the electoral effect of it, because it would play very well to the normies. Now, honestly, you know where the Dems would probably attack this would be that it's only going to the net taxpayers, and they'd come up with some reason why, no, actually, it should be going to everyone. Yeah, I have to be informed. Democrats shouldn't get any money. Yeah, you only get it if you're a registered Republican. Georgie Castrati says, Elon's response also suggests that there's another plan for that money in the works. That's exactly the read that I got on it as well. He's like, yeah, that would be interesting. That'd be great. But really our focus is reducing the deficit and lowering people's interest rates. Interesting that he highlights this. Reduce the deficit to stop inflation and lower people's interest rates. I don't think you're going to be able to get all of those, but it shows where his mind is, at least. Now I'm going to play, let's see. All right, we're going to talk about the housing thing after this clip. I'm going to have to go downstairs and turn the heat off real quick because it's like 85 degrees in here right now. But let me play this clip for you guys first. Patriots are in control. Here's Trump answering about Elon.
The White House said that Elon Musk is not a DOGE employee and has no authority to make decisions. Can you clarify for us today
Well,
what
Elon
his
Musk,
exact role is there?
yeah. Elon is, to me, a patriot. So you
Patriot!
You could call him an employee, you could call him a consultant, you could call him whatever you want. But he's a patriot. I mean, look at the kind of things. I just said, just write it down, just in case that question got asked, right? And which I'm surprised it took so long, actually. But you know what? Ukraine's a bigger deal because people are dying by the thousands a week, thousands. But look at this, from 90 to 99, Social Security, 6,054,000 people. Well, that's okay, maybe that's possible. 90 to 99, maybe it's possible. It's a lot of people, though, at that. But people that live to 100 to 109, 4,734,000. Wow, that's a lot. That means over 100 years old. There are 4 million people. I don't know too many. I know people that are doing great in their 90s, but not too many people over 100. But over 120, from 120 years old, people that are 120 years old up to 129, 3,472,000 people. Wow. That can't possibly be because the record is like, I think it's one person, a woman, lived to 127, but they have 3,472. Okay, but now we're going really in. People from 130 years old to 139-year-old, 3,936,000. Wow. I wonder if people are getting paid with all this. I mean,
he's going through the ages of people from the Social Security database. And there's something, it came out to being something like 20 million people over the age of 100 who are in the database, obviously dead. This ties into the Social Security fraud that we talked about. I think it was on the last episode. But there's a longer clip that you can go look for. It was posted by, I think, Autism Capital. There's like a 9-minute clip where he goes and he reads down every single age bracket and how many people are there, and then goes through and lists off like 20 different insane expenditures of money that's just basically obviously fraudulent. He calls it out. He's like, this is fraudulent. This is money laundering. I wasn't going to make you guys sit through all 9 minutes of it. But I did find his very Owen Wilson-like. $2 super chat here from Rethuglican. What a great name. Says net taxpayers is unspoken code for whites. Yes, exactly. And Noah Chalker asks, Matt, are you on Tom's Slack server? His market reports are outstanding. I am a Patreon member of his. I watch every single market report. I haven't actually gotten onto the Slack server. I keep thinking about doing that. I need to get in there and find out what everyone's talking about. But yeah, I don't miss a single piece of content that Tom Luongo puts out. All right, give me like 1 minute. I need to run downstairs. I am cooking. Oh, good grief. Stupid chair. Oh, man. It is, like, not exaggerating, probably 80-something degrees in here right now, and I've got the heat blowing right down on me. HVAC system in these D.R. Horton starter homes is just so bad. Speaking of D.R. Horton, let's talk about this real estate thing. So first, from the Kobayashi letter. So this is absolutely insane. Since DOGE began discussing mass layoffs, the median home price in Washington, D.C. has fallen by $139,000. In 30 days, nearly 4,000 homes have been listed for sale in and around Washington, D.C. What is happening? Let us explain. Here's a chart showing median home price in the Washington, D.C. area. In November of 2024, the median home in Washington, D.C. was worth $699,000 according to Redfin. Today, the median home is worth $560,000, marking a 20% drop in about 3 months. Mass selling is an understatement. So here's election day, and here's where DOGE begins mass layoffs. There are now nearly 8,000 homes for sale in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Nearly half of these homes have been listed for sale for over the last 30 days. So just in the last 30 days, 4,000 homes. Since November of 2024, nearly 5,000 homes have been listed for sale, well above average. So what exactly is happening here? Year over year, home listings in the Washington, D.C. metro area are up about 23%. Parts of Virginia are seeing 60 to 70% jumps in year over year listings. Keep in mind, this is during the winter months in a housing market that has been historically low on supply. Truly insane. Like, November, December, January, February is the slowest time in the housing market. Let's see, what was this here? Active listings. Falls Church City, Fairfax City, Alexandria City, Montgomery County, Fairfax County, DC Metro. Listings accelerated after DOGE's federal employee buyout offer was announced. The offer pays employees through September of 2025 if they quit, with 5 to 10% of employees expected to agree. As of this week, and this was 4 days ago, as of this week, 65,000 federal employees have accepted the buyout offer per Wall Street Journal. Today, Fox News reported that 3,600 probationary health and human services employees were laid off by DOGE. This is expected to save $600 million in taxpayer dollars annually. The 65,000 DOGE cuts so far are now saving an estimated $38 billion in annual taxpayer dollars. On day 8 of the formation of DOGE, the below announcement was made. DOGE is reportedly saving the U.S. government $1 billion per day. This means DOGE could reduce U.S. deficit spending by 20% in year 1. More layoffs are coming as workforce reduction has been a primary DOGE goal. Here's where it gets even more interesting. There has been a surge in new listings in Washington, D.C. with a listing price of $100 million plus. There are now 525 listings of $1+ million and 44 listings worth $5+ million. This suggests high-profile job exits are rising. Just wait until we see the effects on commercial real estate in Washington, D.C. DOGE announced plans to eliminate up to 2/3 of U.S. government office buildings per Wall Street Journal. Not a single major U.S. government agency is currently occupying even 50% of their office space. DOGE has specifically noted that Washington, D.C. federal government buildings are particularly empty. On average, they are just 12% occupied. The Department of Agriculture saw just 456 of 7,400 employees use their office. The D.C. real estate market is just getting started. If you zoom out further, there are approximately 15,000 homes for sale around Washington, D.C. In fact, there are so many homes for sale in the downtown area that Zillow is grouping 280 homes together. This is an unprecedented level of selling in a generally strong housing market. Are layoffs and rising inventory in D.C. a coincidence? Time will tell, but we see more layoffs ahead as DOGE looks to cut $4 billion a day. With U.S. debt up $13 trillion since 2020, spending cuts are needed. $13 trillion in the last 4 or 5 years. $13 trillion. Absolutely insane. DOGE's goal of rapidly reducing the $1.8 trillion U.S. deficit will impact multiple markets. The 10-year note yield has fallen approximately 40 basis points from its high, and gold is nearing 3,000 even as inflation rebounded. You can subscribe to the Kobe Essay letter. There's a link here, and it says, with mortgage demand at 30-year lows, stocks at all-time highs, and DOGE disrupting government spending, tons of change is coming. As investors, we must evolve with this change. You can go follow them and subscribe to their newsletter if you would like to. So that's the first thing on housing I've got. Now I've got this thread. Lauren, or Rogue Lou 18, says, I'm feeling spunky. Let's see who's selling houses in D.C. 1. The Voter Participation Center Deputy Director of Mail Programs and World Bank Consultant, selling this townhouse for $835,000. Kiplinger Washington Editors Associate Publisher and freelance writer and a music composer from Mexico. $3 million house. for a associate publisher, freelance writer, and music composer. A secretary on Capitol Hill and White House, owner of Waterways Council, opposed to Regulation Extension, Inc. $23.5 million. 8 bedrooms, 13 bathrooms, almost 13,000 square feet. International business consultant for internet governance and digital policy, research intern for Center for American Progress, Buckley LLP associate, $575,000 for a 2x1, 1,100 square foot condo. Data strategy manager, AI and data, financial services, technology consulting, $848,000 for a 3x4, 2,000 square foot townhouse. Fuse Pilates owner, OMC executive director, Carney Earl B. Insurance Office account manager at 9 Sale, $1.675. Deckard LLP associate, Kamite Uwaniki, and none of these are English words. Private school, I recognize that. $13.5 million. And it just goes on like this. Just an insane amount of grift. Just criminal. How much has every single market been just unfathomably distorted? It's difficult to comprehend. Now, Stormy and Pete had this episode I mentioned about 10 days ago that you must go listen to. Let me pull up real quick the name of it. It's something about BlackRock. Pete Quinones, BlackRock. And actually, I was talking about this issue back when I lived in California. So this must have been 5 years ago. Pete's episode is called BlackRock and the Housing Apocalypse with Stormy Waters. And it's episode 1172, released 10 days ago. So about 5 years ago, maybe, there's an episode, if you go back and look on the YouTube channel, there's an episode that mentions BlackRock. And I identified at this point, I was reading an article or something like that, talking about how they're getting into their mass buying neighborhoods of single family homes. And this was at the point where I was exiting the libertarian worldview and railing against the free marketeers. And I was like, there's nothing that's free market about it. Like having these gigantic hedge funds and investment firms and private equity organizations just mass buying up single family homes, distorting the mortgage markets, distorting the rental markets. This is technically free market, but it's evil. They're actively colluding to ensure that American families cannot purchase homes. Their explicitly stated goal is to make the U.S. housing market predominantly renter-based. Landlording. It's just hitting directly on the nose. Stormy breaks down exactly how they're doing this, but one of the things he was tipped off to this by one of his a real estate agent in Florida that he knows, who started identifying that like we'd put these houses on the market, and within minutes or hours, there would be a couple of dozen cash offers being made by LLCs. And she started noticing that it's the same LLCs. They started doing a little bit of digging and tracing these back up. And basically, you've got BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, and there's another one called Pretium Partners. And they're operating through a bunch of layers of LLCs, LLC proxies, so they can disguise themselves. And they're able to go in, pay cash, buy these homes out. Once you get enough homes in a particular neighborhood, then you can begin selling them back and forth to each other, because you've got all these different LLCs, so you just start selling them to your different LLCs, and you can move the rental market up, you can move it back down again, because all the appraising is done based on comps. This is one of the first things that I learned once I got my real estate license was how to do comps. And it's all based on the market and what comparable homes have sold for over the past, ideally the past 3 months. Sometimes you have to go out to 6 months, but you want to keep it like 1 to 3 months. And so they're basically openly admitting that this is what they're doing. BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, Pretium Partners. These are the four that Stormy mentioned in that episode. But their goal is, this is like their new focus now, I think. This is like their backup plan from, it could have been bolted on to the ESG and DEI. But now they've pivoted to this. They've backed away from the ESG and DEI stuff. And what they're positioning to capitalize upon is the fallout of the mortgage moratorium that was placed during COVID. All these people who suddenly their companies got shut down, or they lost their jobs, or for whatever reason they were unable to pay their mortgage. Well, now they get their mortgage their mortgage kicks back in again, and then they have to essentially the mortgage gets reissued, and it's going to be at a new interest rate, and all of that those unpaid payments are going to get bolted onto the back end. So your mortgage payment is, depending on how much it is, it probably goes up by like anywhere between 25 and 40%. And if you couldn't make your mortgage payment back then, things haven't gotten any better over the last 4 or 5 years. It's going to be even harder to make that mortgage payment now, so you're going to foreclose. And I predicted this. People who've been listening for a while, I didn't know exactly what mechanism they were going to use, but shortly after COVID, this was even maybe 2 years ago, something like that, I said, watch, what's going to happen is, my guess is they were going to go at the foreclosure market, and they were going to regulate it in such a way that non-institutional buyers would not be able to purchase foreclosures. The foreclosure sale market would just be protected away from individual buyers. Fortunately, we do have some awareness within the administration about this problem. First of all, from RFK. This is just recently, at least the video was posted January 12th. I don't know exactly when this happened. But here's him talking about this precise issue.
Importantly, there's 3 giant corporations, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, which own, collectively, they own each other, so it's really one giant corporation. But they also own 89% of the S&P 500. They own everything. They've now decided to buy every single family home in America. So if they stay on the current trajectory, they will own 60% of the homes in this country, single family homes, by 2030. They literally are trying to buy everything. And the head of it, Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, is on the board of the World Economic Forum, and what they've said, we want this great reset, which is you will own nothing and you will be happy. Well, they're on their way to making sure that we don't own anything. So you all probably have heard of people who are about to buy a home, and somebody comes in at the last minute with a cash or offer and snatches it out of the market.
Right.
And it's usually an LLC with an ambiguous name. But if you trace that up, you'll find it's owned by BlackRock.
Wow.
This is exactly what Stormy was talking about, based on his conversation with his realtor friend in Florida. Here he pointed this out. So Lena Khan, who was the FTC chair, I read you Ferguson. I can't remember his first name. Andrew. The tweet thread I read just a little bit ago. He's the one who replaced her as of 2 weeks ago. But Unusual Whale says Lena Khan has warned of, quote, catastrophic consequences for America if Donald Trump's antitrust officials fail to scrutinize private equity groups that are buying up chunks of the U.S. economy, per Financial Times. Stormy said, first RFK, now Mrs. Khan. That's 2 senior Trump admin officials who are finally paying attention. If Fink and his disgusting private equity friends are allowed to do what they're planning, homeownership and its aspiration in America is dead. These men are a disease. They're criminals. This is exactly it. John Carter said, listen to your interview with Quinones at the gym this morning. Every single one of these people needs to be arrested, their assets confiscated, their electronic searched with a fine-tooth comb, and their companies given the corporate death penalty. Stormy says, yeah, man, I did a similar deep dive into the healthcare CEO with Pete. These people are monsters in the literal sense. They vampirize the sick, the poor, and the helpless. In our day and age, can anything be more noble than committing oneself to the destruction of these monsters? Now, I just got a little show here with a little audience, but I wanted to talk about this because we've seen, I laid the groundwork for how our posters are getting stuff into the White House. The administration is beginning to pick up on the things, and they've been doing this for a while. They've been picking up on the things that we talk about. We need to talk about this issue. I don't know exactly what the solution is for this, because this is part of the nature of these sorts of monsters, is that they thrive in a world of regulatory capture. Like their explicit motivation is figuring out how to influence legislation in a particular way so that they can navigate around it in a way that their competitors can't. So by their nature, they're very slippery and they're difficult to pin down. But this is going to be this is something that the administration is going to have to be very much on top of, not just for the single-family home issue, but more broadly, American assets being purchased by foreign investors. Because part of the whole monetary reset that they're going to be that they're orchestrating right now involves bringing in foreign investment. Like that's part of the idea is we need people sending dollars into the United States rather than pulling dollars out of the United States. But the dark underbelly of that possibility is you get this sort of problem on an even greater scale. And we can hope that the administration manages these sorts of things appropriately, and I think that the right people are in position to actually do that, but they also have a lot of things to concentrate on. Trying to navigate us through the turmoil of the next couple of years is going to be it's going to be difficult. There's going to be negative fallout. There's no way we don't have perfect people. So there's going to be bad things that happen. So this can't just be simply wait and hope the administration bails us out. There has to be a corresponding effort by our guys, to whatever extent they can, to begin buying up this land, this property, these homes, all of this ourselves. So that's one thing. Some guys are meant to go into politics. You're someone like Josiah Lippincott, get him involved with ICE? Yes, absolutely. We need to have networks of guys that are getting our guys into positions of influence in state and local and even federal office. But there also has to be private sector coordination and networking and organizing and funding. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities. More and more people are going to be foreclosing. We've only just begun to see the fallout in the housing market from everything that happened during COVID. And it's incumbent upon our guys to try to scoop up as much of this as we possibly can. This goes beyond just, it's not simply a matter of try to, like I know money's tight for a lot of people. Some people have money, some people don't. And it's not like you can just say, oh, the money doesn't matter. But some of this stuff is bigger than just the money. If we have guys out there who have money, who can purchase some of these properties and ensure that they're available for our guys, that they're not going to be manipulating the market with it, it's time for those guys to step up. I can point you in a lot of directions for people. If you have the resources, but you're like, I have no idea. I don't even know how I would get started in this. I don't have any experience buying rental homes or maintaining them, whatever. I can point you in a bunch of different directions. But we can't just sit and wait for the administration and hope that they do all the right things on this particular front. To whatever extent we can, we have to be buying up these homes as well. Just as a matter of self-defense. It's difficult to compete with, $200 billion worth of money or whatever that's been set aside for scooping all this up. And because it goes beyond that. They're going to buy the homes. They're going to incentivize the renting. They're going to stuff them full of smart devices that are then going to be capturing data, and they're going to be selling that data. Frankly, the majority of these people need to face a wall. But there's a lot that our guys can be doing. If you're just kind of, I don't know, running up a time card in some job where financially you're basically comfortable, you're making pretty decent money, but you're sort of you're disenfranchised with your company leadership, or you're tired of it, you want to make a career change. Getting into buying real estate and beginning to build a real estate empire is not just like a prudent financial decision. It's not just like, oh, hey, there's going to be a great opportunity because there's going to be a bunch of real estate up for sale. It's also something that you can be doing as a way of contributing to the wellness of your people. Buying those homes and ensuring that they're available to be sold to, or to that our guys who can't afford to buy, if they're going to have to rent, at least they can rent from one of their own people and not from one of these soulless ghouls. This is from about a week ago, from Spencer Lindquist, an investigative reporter for the Daily Wire. It says, exclusive, a Texas land developer admitted that the Colony Ridge business model relies on selling land to unqualified foreign buyers. This is from an email that he sent. This is Scott Campbell. He says, this is an attack on our industry. It is not only Harris thereafter, the right wing of the party, this is from September of 2023. The right wing of the party wants to stop all development of this nature. The left wants to knock us out of the market because we make money on the poor. For context, was there an image of this? Yeah, here. This is Colony Ridge, real quick. America's largest illegal immigrant settlement that's said to be a hub of cartel activity. It's home to 40 to 75,000 people. This is in the greater Houston area. And it's basically full of illegal immigrants. Illegal aliens. He says the right wing of the party wants to stop all development of this nature. The left wants to knock us out of the market because we make money on the poor. For completely different reasons, those are the entities we've been fighting. We will not be able to sell our developments if each of our buyers have to have a social security number, and we have to qualify each buyer as to the buyer's ability to repay. It will kill our industry and will make our future resale of foreclosed lots worth a lot less than because we will all be fighting over a few qualified buyers that will be able to qualify. Sending an email like this and continuing to be in business, I don't see how this is not open crime. Like this is literally the definition of criminal. He's openly admitting to it. We will not be able to sell our developments if each of our buyers have to have a social security number. Then you cannot sell them. Go out of business. Go live in a sewer. He says, this is not new. This has been the direction even the SMLists thought was correct. The right does not like our subdivisions because they believe our subdivisions are a blight on the communities. They are. Raise taxes. Do not look like the folks that live in their neighborhoods, cannot speak English, etc. Yes, if you cannot speak English, and you are literally a criminal by dint of the fact that you're even here to purchase the home. Yes, you may not sell to these people. The fact that you've been selling to these people quite literally makes you a criminal. You should consider it a blessing if you're not taken out back and shot like a dog. The left think it is evil to make money on poor people, charge higher interest. We allow substandard housing because we don't have restriction. They really believe that since they cannot afford a brick home, they should live in government housing. I've heard them say that they had rather them live under an overpass than in our subdivisions, even though there's not enough money in the government to provide housing nationwide and would raise taxes a lot more. I think you should live under an overpass, Scott Campbell. Never mind that these are the folks that do the work we cannot find local residents to do and that they go from a drag on the community to taxpayers, and it was President Biden that opened the floodgates and allowed millions in without identification and no jobs. Oh, well, I guess if he allowed millions in, then you've just got to figure out a way to scam, plunder the American people. Because it's not my fault. He's the one who let him in here. I'm just making money off of keeping him here. We don't want our Texas cities to look like New York with homeless on the streets. Our industry does much to help the homeless problem, is a good option to government housing. The dude's freaking illiterate, too. If no one responds to the lies in this article and what was on Fox News this morning, it becomes a fact in all their minds. This is why we have to respond. I want a Fed post so hard. Scott Campbell is the dad of Colony Ridge's loan servicer and the former chairman of the Texas Land Developers Association. He admitted that it would kill our industry if we have to qualify each buyer as to the buyer's ability to repay and check Social Security numbers. He also appeared to confirm that developments like Colony Ridge sell land to illegal aliens. Colony Ridge tells buyers to, quote, own land in the U.S. Campbell claimed that regulations would, quote, make our future resale of foreclosed lots worth a lot less because we will all be fighting over a few qualified buyers. Months later, Colony Ridge would be accused by the DOJ of churning buyers through a cycle of foreclosure. Campbell wrote this email to the leadership of the TLDA, which lobbies on behalf of seller finance companies, after Daily Wire dropped our first Colony Ridge investigation. He called our investigation an attack on our industry, despite seemingly confirming my report. But Campbell has ties to Colony Ridge. His daughter, Gail Campbell, runs Loan Originator Services, LLC, which processed loans for Colony Ridge and had office space in the development's building. She was named, but then dismissed, from the DOJ CFPB lawsuit against Colony Ridge. TLDA also shares lobbyist Chuck Rice with Colony Ridge, and he was one of the recipients of Campbell's email. Rice has raked in as much as $368,000 from Colony Ridge and its lawyer, and as much as $1.1 million from the TLDA, which appears to be his largest client. There's a link to the full investigation here. Now, this popped up on Elon's radar, which is good to hear. But this needs to stay on their radar. These people need to be perp walked. Every person involved in this development. It's a 60 square mile Texas development that systematically attracts illegal aliens. It'll grow to 250,000 residents if it's not stopped. The developers sell out America while pocketing millions. Scott Campbell is a traitor. And he needs to be handled the way that a traitor is handled. This is the old guard GOP that's much more subversive and needs to be handled with a much stiffer hand than the shit libs. The shit libs are mostly going to scream and cry and get demoralized and wander off a cliff or something. These guys are snakes. One other little bit of good news. Layoff alert. HUD will lay off 50% of its workforce as part of the Trump administration's cost-cutting measures. The layoffs will impact offices enforcing civil rights laws, housing market data collection, and disaster recovery funding. HUD is a hive of scum and villainy that is largely responsible for all of the inefficiencies and bloat in the housing market. And gutting it completely would be a wonderful service to the people. And then there's this, which is good to hear. This is a step in the right direction. This is from Matthew Boyle, exclusive. Secretary Rollins at USDA told me in an interview for Breitbart that the Trump administration is exploring a, quote, federal solution for stopping China from buying U.S. farmland. As of last year, 2/3 of states had or were considering measures to ban CCP buying U.S. farmland. Now the U.S. government federally is considering measures to block the practice. From Rollins, quote, with my experience in the states, I'm a huge believer in the laboratories of democracy. The 10th Amendment says our states are the guardians at the gate. And for the last several years, my organization, America First Policy Institute, we actually worked among multiple states to get states to act on this to pass state legislation. But we are also looking at a federal solution, too. Rollins says, too, that a lot of the land that Chinese entities controlled by the CCP government are buying, quote, is around some of our military outposts. Again, this is going to be a thorny issue because part of the whole idea of returning to I just forgot his name, McKinley. The McKinley tariff-funded government drawing foreign dollars into the United States is that it's going to potentially could open up a lot more opportunities like this where you get foreign buyers who are fleeing from all the other parts of the world that are not a great investment now as the sovereign, as Europe begins to just cave in on themselves. The sovereign debt collapse that's coming is going to result in a lot of capital flight into the United States. But we on the ground level and the administration are going to have to be very careful that this doesn't result in a bunch of foreigners buying up American property and keeping it out of the hands of Americans. A lot of that's over I can identify the potential problem. As to the solutions for it, that's over my pay grade. I couldn't even begin to talk about how to prevent that. I can just tell that it needs to happen. Speaking of Europe, you guys have probably heard about all this gold that's flooding from Europe into the United States. And there's Elon has started talking about, is the gold actually in Fort Knox? DOGE is showing up to audit the IRS and the Treasury and DOD. And there's been some rumblings going on about actually going and doing like a guided video tour of Fort Knox. I don't really think that that's going to happen, but, crazy things have been happening. Anyways, here's this guy here, Josh Philip Fair, talking. I've got a couple of videos to share with him talking about this gold situation.
Hey, so breaking news. Elon Musk just this afternoon posted out on X, surely the gold in Fort Knox is audited every year. Well, so what's coming? I would reckon to think Elon already knows the answer. Gold has not been audited. The U.S. gold has not been audited since 1974. That's right, 50 years. So if you've been following along on X, and mainstream will not know what's going on. They're going to be clueless. Those of you that have been tuning in on this channel in particular, and a few others, know what's been happening. Insane amount of gold has been flown from all over the world, but in predominantly out of London. And they are draining the supply of gold all throughout the world. And now there's shortages, delays, everything. So a couple questions. Is it that the U.S. didn't have enough gold here in time for the audit? And that's quite possible. Definitely quite possible. Some of the U.S.'s gold could have easily been stored over in the Bank of England. But could they be getting ahead? So perhaps they're topping up to where they need to be, and perhaps they're getting ahead. Again, we've been talking about that. Challenging what's happening with the BRICS countries, in particular China, who's been just gold piling for the last few years. So is this the U.S. kind of resurging again? We've been talking about on our X channel that there's no doubt that central banks are deleveraging as we speak, which means they have a combination of their fiat currency, debt, and then how much gold is on their balance sheets. The debt has expanded so much, nothing really makes sense. And now now they're starting to grow their gold up again. So we've seen this gold increase has not been from consumers. Consumers are pretty much unaware of what's happening. Mainstream media is unaware of what's happening. There's so much distraction to take you away from what's actually taking place. Those of you that understand and see what's happening this decade, this could be a wild ride. Thanks.
All right, I've got another video update from him with some more specific details. But first of all, you guys may have heard this term dollar milkshake theory. And if you haven't, then this video is for you.
A giant milkshake of liquidity has been created by global central banks, with the dollar as its key ingredient. But if the dollar is higher, this milkshake will be sucked into the US, creating a vicious spiral that could quickly destabilize financial markets. The US dollar is the bedrock of the world's financial system. It greases the wheels of global commerce and exchange. The availability of dollars, the cost of dollars, and the level of the dollar itself each can have an outsized impact on economies and investment opportunities. But more important than the absolute level or availability of dollars is the rate of change in the level of the dollar. If the level of the dollar moves too quickly, and particularly if the level rises too fast, then problems start popping up all over the place. And that's why everyone should have a plan for a rapidly rising dollar. It doesn't need to be a base case, but it never hurts to be prepared. Today, however, many people are convinced that both the role of the dollar is diminishing and that the level of the dollar will only decline. People think that the US is printing so many dollars that the world will be awash with the greenback, causing the value of the dollar to fall. Now, it's true that the US is printing a lot of dollars, but other countries are also printing their own currencies in similar amounts. So in theory, it should even out in terms of value. But the hidden issue is the difference in demand. Remember, the global financial system is built on the US dollar, which means even if they don't want them, everybody still needs them. And if you need something, you don't really have much choice. And although many countries like China are trying to reduce their reliance on dollar transactions, this will be a very slow transition. In the meantime, the risks of a currency or sovereign debt crisis continue to rise. For now, countries like China and Japan need dollars to buy copper from Australia. So the Chinese and the Japanese want dollars, and Australia is getting paid in dollars. Europe and Asia currently do a very limited amount of non-dollar transactions for oil. So they still need dollars to buy oil from Saudi. And again, dollars get hoovered up on both sides. Asia and Europe need dollars to buy soybeans from Brazil. This pulls in yet more dollars. Everybody needs dollars for trade invoices, central bank currency reserves, and servicing massive cross-border dollar-denominated debts of governments and corporations outside of the USA. And the dollar-denominated debt is key. If they don't service their debts or walk away from their dollar debts, their funding costs rise, putting great financial pressure on their domestic economies. Not only that, it can lead to a credit contraction and a rapid tightening of dollar supply. And the US is happy with the reliance on the greenback. They own the settlement system which benefits the US banks, who process all the dollars and act as gatekeepers to the dollar system. They police and control the access to the system, which benefits the US military machine.
I'm going to critique, as Georgie says here, I'm going to critique some of what he's saying here at the end, but I'm going to let the whole thing play through.
Where defense spending is in excess of any other country. So naturally, the US benefits from the massive volumes of dollar usage. And other countries have naturally been grumbling about being held hostage to the situation. But their choices are limited. What it does mean is that dollars need to be constantly sucked out of the USA because other countries all over the world need them to do business. And of course, the more people there are who need and want those dollars, the more is the pressure for the price of dollars to go up. In fact, global demand is so high that the supply of dollars is just not enough to keep up, even with the US continually printing money. And this is why we haven't seen consistently rising US inflation despite so many QE and stimulus programs since the global financial crisis in 2008. But the real risk comes when other economies start to slow down or when the US starts to grow relative to the other economies. If there is relatively less economic activity elsewhere in the world, then there are fewer dollars in global circulation for others to use in their daily business. And of course, If there are fewer in circulation, then the price goes up as people chase that dwindling source of dollars, which is terrible for countries that are slowing down because just when they are suffering economically, they still need to pay for many goods in dollars and they still need to service their debts, which of course are often in dollars too. And so the vortex begins, or as we like to say, the dollar milkshake. As the level of the dollar rises, the rest of the world needs to print more and more of its own currency to then convert to dollars to pay for goods and to service its dollar debt. This means that the dollar just keeps on rising. In response, many countries will be forced to devalue their own currencies. So of course, the dollar rises again. And this puts a huge strain on the global system. To make matters worse, in this environment, the US looks like an attractive safe haven. So the US ends up sucking in the capital from the rest of the world. The dollar rises again. Pretty soon, you have a full-scale sovereign bond and currency crisis. We're now into that final napalm run that sees the dollar and dollar assets accelerate even higher. And this completely undermines global markets. Central banks try to prevent the disorderly move, but the global markets are bigger and the momentum unstoppable once it takes hold. And that is the risk that very few people see coming, but that everyone should have a hedge against. When the US sucks up the dollar milkshake, bad things are going to happen. Worst of all, there's no alternatives. What are you going to do? Yuan? Yen? The euro? Now, like it or not, we're stuck with the dollar, underpinning the global financial system. And that's why we all need to pay very special attention to the dollar milkshake theory.
Yes, so as there's the dollar milkshake theory is a from Brent Johnson is a good thing to be aware of, but there's a few things that are not quite. There's a lot of accuracy to it, but there's a few things that aren't quite right that I think are actually even more clarifying, and it explains why I think this flood of gold coming to the United States is happening. So, as Georgie says here, we know from Dr. Stormy, it wasn't the U.S. printing dollars, it was other countries printing dollars. This is the so-called euro dollar, the offshore dollar market. So all of those debts, all of those dollar-denominated debts that have been printed did not come from American banks that have different collateral requirements and rehypothecation constraints, unlike the offshore banks. So these offshore banks have been literally just inventing money, inventing dollars, just printing out dollars like crazy, flooding the world with them, getting everyone completely addicted to them. But what this means is that all of the other offshore markets that are so hyper leveraged, they start breaking if the American market begins raising interest rates to try to cycle out some of the poor investment, the malinvestment. They need to cycle it out. Well, they don't actually get all of that inflation cycled out of the system before the offshore dollar markets begin to break. And so we've been building up more and more malinvestment in our economy, and then you add just outright fraud and just blatant corruption of the last several years, and printing insane amounts of money, and it adds to that. So as Armchair Contrarian says here, if Australia, Canada, the Bahamas can have a domestic dollar, why can't the USA? And Noah says Tom Luongo thinks that we will have a domestic dollar to prevent this from happening in the future. Yes. And I think this is part of the story of all of this gold coming back. It serves multiple purposes. One, it could be because there is going to be an audit, and they want to have the gold there, and the gold wasn't there, and they want the gold to be there. It also serves to, we get the gold. You don't get it, we get it. And by bringing all this gold into the States, it makes the offshore markets that much more fragile and dependent upon and having to react to American markets. But ultimately, I think the reason for all of this gold coming back I think it's for those reasons, but it is because there are plans underway for returning to a quasi-gold standard, and I think it's going to be the best case for this that I've heard is the one that Tom Luongo is putting forth, and I've been hearing little blips from a number of different sectors that are not necessarily directly connected to him of people hinting toward this. Nothing overt, but I'm starting to see smoke rising, which makes me think there's fire here. And then, of course, Tom's incredibly well sourced. So when he says something, I'm inclined to trust him. I believe that this is part of the reason why there is a concerted effort, a concerted institutional effort to flood all of this gold back into the U.S. because it is going to become the backstop for a domestically circulating dollar. Now, for more on this gold, here from Josh again. The amount of gold moving from the Bank of England to the U.S. is insane.
Hey everybody, it's Josh Fair, Scottsdale Mint again. Hey, thanks for, about 500,000 views in the last 12 hours or so on that first Elon Musk possibly going to be auditing gold. Wanted to follow up with part 2 here, getting quite a bit of questions. So I don't have all the answers, but I'm just going to go with what I think is essentially going down. So a lot of people say the gold's not there. And what happens when the audit shows that there is no gold there? And while that's quite the possibility, I don't think Trump likes to fail at pretty much anything, and neither does Elon. And I'm going with firsthand experience here, firsthand knowledge. They have been flying gold into the United States, out of Europe, and mainly London. I know this for a fact. On almost every flight starting before Christmas. These flights, typically a passenger flight, they'll spread the gold out, roughly 4 tons of gold. I'll let you guys do.
Uh-oh. Good night,
Daddy.
Good night, big guy. We've got a visitor. Who do you got? Oh, did I get sprayed by your skunk? What's his name?
Whiskey.
Whiskey the skunk?
I got that name from one of my Clipper episodes.
One of your Clipper episodes?
When
Yeah.
Quill gets sprayed by a skunk.
Yeah. Clipper the big red dog. And Queel gets sprayed by a skunk?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that's why you named him... What's his name again?
Whiskey.
Whiskey, that's right, yeah.
And they call the skunk who sprayed Quill Whiskey.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Can you tell them that?
Yeah, they can hear you. They can hear you in the microphone. Do you want them to post some oinks in the chat for you? All right, you got to watch right down here where I'm pointing the mouse, okay? Oinks in the chat, guys. There'll be just a little bit of a delay because it takes them a second to hear me. But if you watch, then pretty soon you'll see some oinks. There they are.
Why does it show pigs when they give me oinks?
Because that's what they're doing. They're giving you oinks by posting pigs. You ready for bed, big guy?
Can you talk about Pig Duck on your show?
I've told them about Pig Dirk before. You got to see Pig Dirk at the at Snowfest, didn't you? Yeah?
Uh-huh. He got there before us.
Yeah, he did.
He was doing a race.
He was?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
And we lost in the race.
Yeah, we did lose at the petting zoo, huh? All right. Daddy needs to get back to his show, okay?
Daddy, can you,
You want me to show you the lighter?
Uh-huh.
All right, here. Do it real quick, then I need you to go back downstairs, okay? There it is.
Can you run your finger across it?
Ooh.
Is it hot?
Yeah, if I left my finger there, it would be, but not if I go quick. All right, take Whiskey with you, okay?
He has a magic tail.
Yeah.
He can light a fire on his tail. Watch.
Wow. He's like a Pokemon. I see it. Oh, you're putting your finger through it? Wow. All right, big guy, I love you. Close the door behind you, please. Close the door.
There's a big wreckage.
A big wreckage? Yeah, you made a big wreckage out there, didn't you? Okay, little bulldozer. Last night, after Amy had gotten him to sleep, he woke up a couple hours later, all disgruntled, and got mad at her for turning the bananas green. That's what it's like living with Eastwood. Okay, so I wanted to going back to this video, I wanted to do some of this math when he talks about it. Come on. Browser window just crashed. So let's come back here and see what he said. Share the screen to this window. All right, come back.
Pulled out roughly 4 tons of gold. I'll let you guys do the math. Roughly 32,000 ounces per pallet. They'll spread that.
So 32 ounces per pallet. So 32. Hold on. What was this here?
Out across the cargo. If the plane in 2000, roughly 4 tons of gold.
So 4 tons of gold. So how much is 4 tons of gold in USD? There he's calculating based on 2,500 an ounce. So that's $353 million. Calculate based on gold price of 3,000. Little over $423 million is what 4 tons of gold is.
I'll let you guys do the math. Roughly 32,000 ounces per pallet. They'll spread that out across the cargo. If the plane is full, as most of it was leading up to Christmas because of holiday travel, they could only get 2 tons. So if almost every single flight is that much gold coming in, and I know this firsthand from all the armed carriers. Guys, I work with these companies. I know them. In fact, one of them is going to be leasing space for me in my new facility in Wyoming and handling gold coming in from both Europe for clients coming in and out. So I know this firsthand. So this amount of gold has been coming here. A lot of us, including myself, started noticing the exchange for physical premium that the banks were allowing, giving a premium to bring the gold to the United States. Most of us thought it was only EFP, was only for tariff reasons. While that is 100% correct, we broke it on this X. If you've been following us, the beginning of February, it's saying that, hey, this is repatriation, which means they are bringing gold here for someone. Is that someone the U.S. government? I'm just trying to connect the dots. I don't know for sure. It wouldn't surprise me when Trump was talking about a golden era, remonetizing the balance sheets. You also have to think the new Treasury Secretary, he likes gold. So when they say, hey, we're going to make sure for it not...
Saying he likes gold is an understatement. Scott Bessent is a billionaire, and I think a little over 50% of his net worth is in gold. He likes gold.
Knox has the gold, and then the other vaults have the gold. I think this is just a heads up that this is what's coming. Obviously, the U.S. has other vaults as well. So we mentioned that it's been 50 years from the last audit. Yes, it was a partial audit. It wasn't a full extensive audit. You got to go back to another 20 years prior. I think it was early 50s, 53 perhaps, that we've had a full audit. So it's time to do a full audit. A lot of these gold bars, folks, if we go back to like the World War II era and beyond, they were at different weights and purities. So some of these specs were, at the time, they were like a 295, so 99.5%. Now the standard for the U.S. government and most delivery is 395. Most of us are also familiar with 49s. So some of this metal needs to be refined, perhaps, but it doesn't change the amount of gold that would be in that bar. You just do the multiplication. So that said, I don't think that they're going to fail. They are here to win. So if I'm a betting man, I'm going to guess that they've been short the gold. Was the gold perhaps encumbered? There's a lot of discussion about that gold being encumbered, whether it was through the Vatican, London. I don't know. There's so many different concepts and theories out there. While I don't know, what I do know is that the amount of gold coming to the U.S. is record. A lot of that gold is showing up in the COMEX. So you clearly know that I'm not just making this up out of thin air. A lot of you who are watching me, and I think that's why my X account is growing, was just talking about things before they were happening. And you're seeing just insane amount of gold hitting the COMEX. I mean, historic record amount. And you're seeing reports out of Korea. They're stopping selling. The Korea Mint is stopping selling both gold and silver. So what is going on? Again, these gold miners and refiners, if they're good delivery, they're all getting eaten up. Again, my company has been personally called by some financial institutions that aren't normal. They're not normal players in the gold market, and they've been calling and asking for things. So, guys, this is a pure high-level institutional move. Physical metal is rapidly coming into the U.S. So again, if I had to put my chips down, I think that there will be an audit. It could be slow played. Is it going to be this year? Is it going to be in a month? I don't know these things, but I think when they do drop it, the audit results will not only show that the gold is here, but that perhaps we have even more. Again, I'm going back with what I know. Trump has been warning the BRICS countries, primarily China, as I mentioned before, that they have been trying to create a competitor to the U.S. dollar and backing it with gold. While there's so much distraction around with everything with Bitcoin, and folks, I own Bitcoin. I've had it for a long time. I like it. But never go maxi in anything is my philosophy. And that includes gold and silver as well. But gold, and I just put out a video a couple days ago on YouTube, so check it out. It's called Why is Gold Important in 2025? We have essentially, the American people, have been told that gold is not part of our world anymore. And while, yes, you don't use gold, you don't spend it at the grocery store, our money is not necessarily backed, but central banks all have a percentage of gold on their balance sheets. And the power of an economy is the economic input and the output that it can create, the GDP that it can create. That is true. But also there's a component of how much fiat that they issue, how much debt do they have, and then how much gold that they have. And then when things get out of balance and when people start to distrust government, and you can just think about it. Have you guys distrust any governments around the world, including the United States over the last many years? Probably. So when distrust is there, they don't necessarily trust a lot of these things. You can imagine what an audit report would show. If an audit report shows, it's going to potentially strengthen, I would say, the future of the United States, the future of what is going on. So this is kind of my high level. Look, I'm going to put the pieces of the puzzle on the board, and I'm going to move them around. So as these facts and different things come out, I'm going to move them around. A lot of what's being discussed in the news, people have pulled. Some have given credit to me, and the Scottsdale Mint team, they've given credit to us. But a lot of people are just pulling our content and then they're talking about it on other news channels. And I think that's fine and all. But I think you're going to see this by the time this goes mainstream. A lot of people are going to say we never saw this coming, but clearly something big is definitely brewing. So that's my quick hit, part two as to what I think could happen here. Thanks.
So, again, that was Josh Philip Fair from Scottsdale Mint. You can follow him at Josh Philip with one L. Fair is P-H-A-I-R, founder and CEO of Scottsdale Mint. So what's happening here is right on the cusp of a sovereign debt collapse, and immediately on the heels of the rather revolutionary LIBOR to SOFR move, the United States is scooping up as much gold as they possibly can at the same time that central banks around the world are scrambling to accumulate as much gold as they can because they see what's coming. Because as this sovereign debt collapse gets worse and worse, the banks are going to need something to reshore up their balance sheets, to collateralize themselves. And so there's going to be a flood for gold, but the United States is getting ahead of it and cornering it while they have a gold bug at the Treasury. Andrew here says in the chat that Secretary Lutnick just came out and announced formally that the administration's goal is to eliminate the IRS. He says it's official, they're not just shrinking it, it's going the way of USAID. I was thinking the ERS was just rhetoric like make Mexico pay for the wall. If you guys are getting it here, folks. You guys are getting it here first. I've been telling you the IRS is going to go away. Like, yeah, it requires an act of Congress to formally get rid of it, but the executive can just make it ineffectual. He can just say we're not collecting anymore. We're going to pardon anybody who doesn't pay their taxes. It doesn't. He can effectively completely neuter it or just completely shut it down. If they're going to go through Congress, just completely shut it down. And like what? You're going to say, you're going to argue in favor of the IRS? No, we need to keep taxing you guys. You need to keep paying income taxes. Who wants to politically die on that hill? Rob P says, big things are happening. I've got to listen to Pete and Tom Luongo after this is over. Yes, go listen to them. Big things are happening. And I've been saying for several weeks now that the entire structure of the global financial and monetary system is going to look so different at the end of Trump's term, Trump's second, third term, that we can't even comprehend exactly what it's going to look like. We're going through a period of massive, drastic change. The nothing ever happens bros are completely BTFO. And as Noah says here, he's segueing me in perfectly to the next subject. He says it's also a direct attack on the LBMA. City of London, anybody? If Britain has a sovereign debt collapse, they cannot take others' gold to recollateralize themselves. Once Ukraine collapses, the grift is up, their loans are worthless, and a collapse is in for Europe. So this importation of all of this gold is a multi-pronged attack on a bunch of different things. But it's impossible at this point, given the behavior of the administration through Vance, Trump, Elon, Hegseth, Besant, probably more than I could think of if I thought about it a little bit longer. It's very, very clear that the formal position of this administration is that the UK in particular, and Europe more broadly, is not going to be by default considered allied countries. These are not countries that we are by default allies with. If anything, there's close to open hostility between this administration and the UK. The UK's current leadership, I should say. Because the negotiations that are happening between the US and Russia now, that are opening up, that are beginning, that are happening in Saudi Arabia, without Zelensky. Zelensky tried to go down there and tried to force his way in and was politely told, yeah, you can come down here, but we're busy. This is indirectly two gigantic middle fingers at the UK specifically. Because the UK has been the predominant ideological thrust behind the Ukraine war. And the US is making it very clear to them that you're welcome to continue prosecuting this yourself, but we're not going to be involved. While they're bankrupting them. I mean, I don't see how there's any way that you could say that this isn't accidental. It isn't like the administration is it just so happens that they're doing all these different things. You know, Elon comes out and goes scorched earth, completely torching Keir Starmer and Labor, broadly speaking, and promoting reform, pushing reform. And they're basically stiffing. They went into Europe. They sent Hegseth and Vance into Europe to drop their dicks on the table. And then, right as I say that, I see Colin Rush says, walk into the house and the wife has king pilled on the big screen. I apologize for the language, Mrs. Colin Rush. They go over there. They reveal their manhood to the Europors. They begin negotiating all of this without Europe or Ukraine. And they're bankrupting them. Like, there's no way that the administration, or at least key players within the administration, aren't keenly aware of who the problem is. My president is out here just nuking this gay little midget.
We're hearing that Russia wants to force Ukraine to hold new elections in order to sign any kind of a peace deal. Is that something that the U.S. would ever support?
Well, we have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have martial law, essentially martial law in Ukraine, where the leader in Ukraine, I mean, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating, and where a country has been blown to smithereens. You got most of the cities are laying on their sides. The buildings are collapsed. It looks like a massive demolition site. So, you know, people are tired of it. People want to see something happen.
It's down at 4%. His words got even stronger.
Do you have any
any message for Ukrainians who, after 3 years of fighting, might feel betrayed or disappointed at not having a seat at these initial talks in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think I'm really disappointed in what's happened. I've been watching this for 3 years. It's a war that would have never happened if I was president, and I've been watching these people being killed at levels that you've rarely seen, not even close, since the Second World War. And I'm very disappointed. I hear that, they're upset about not having a seat. Well, they've had a seat for 3 years and a long time before that. This could have been settled very easily. Just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago without the loss of much land, very little land, without the loss of any lives, and without the loss of cities that are just laying on their sides. You have those magnificent golden domes.
The golden domes!
Shattered, will never be replaced. You can't replace them. 1,000-year-old domes that are so beautiful. You can't replace that. The whole civilization has changed because of what. So when they're worried about not being seated, you mean somebody that should have gone in and made a deal a long time ago.
This is, I was telling you guys that my expectation was that we weren't going to be super happy with how Ukraine was handled. I'm still leaving the door open for, there could wind up being something. I think most people want to see the U.S. completely detached from Ukraine and have no interest in the Ukraine whatsoever. And that's not going to happen. I think this is where people are going to feel a little bit let down. But they're going so much more aggressively at this than I expected. Just straight up negotiating in good faith directly with the Russians, bypassing not just the Ukraine, but bypassing Europe altogether. They went in and they told Europe exactly how it's going to be. I showed you the tweet from J.D. Vance, I think it was yesterday, where he told them, if you guys continue this policy of censorship and blocking out alternative parties to keep yourself in power, relations between the U.S. and European countries are not going to be the same. And now they're just directly going around them and negotiating this, which is sending the European leadership into an absolute meltdown. With these words that Trump is saying here, these are not just, he's not just shitting all over Zelensky, which is a big deal in and of itself, because Zelensky is like the hallowed man. He's not just shitting all over them. This is the European leadership. When they hear this, they recognize this is directed at them as well. Any half-baked negotiator could have gotten this sorted. He's calling out them directly. His words got even stronger.
And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
You should have never started it.
Ukraine. That would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down. But they chose not to do it that way. And President Biden, in all fairness, he doesn't have a clue. What he was so bad for.
They shouldn't have started it to begin with. Here's a lib freaking out about it. So the president's perspective on this properly is that the Ukraine is responsible for this. Now, largely, it wasn't just the Ukraine. The Ukrainian people themselves have been the biggest victims in all of this, and it's an absolute atrocity what's been done to them. People need to hang from trees for what has happened to the Ukrainian people. But Zelensky is not some... You have the Republican delegate. I think I have a video. Was it next here? Yeah. This is the Republicans. You hear the way that Trump is talking about Zelensky. This was last week.
How are you? How you doing? Hi. Good to see you, pal. Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
You look good. How's it going? Really? How you doing? Yes.
Hang in there. You're my friends here.
Thank you very much for this.
Look at these old men. These old corrupt dinosaurs. Speaking of trees. And then here's what Trump posted today. Think of it. A modestly successful comedian, Volodymyr Zelensky, talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion. Now, interestingly, that's a larger number than I've heard to this point. $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won, that never had to start, but a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, will never be able to settle. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed, while the United States will get nothing back. Why didn't sleepy Joe Biden demand equalization and that this war is far more important to Europe than it is to us? We have a big, beautiful ocean as separation. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half of the money we sent him is missing. He refuses to have elections, is very low in Ukrainian polls, and the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast, or he is not going to have a country left. The absolute scenes of Trump calling Zelensky a dictator, knowing full well the minds that are exploding all over the world over this. In the meantime, we are successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia, something all admit only Trump and the Trump administration can do. Biden never tried, Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably wants to keep the gravy train going. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered, and millions have unnecessarily died. And so it continues. I am so frickin' amped, white-pilled, heartened that this is the approach the administration is taking on this. They see this more clearly than I expected them to. And this is really putting the Senate Republicans, the congressional Republicans in general, this is really putting them in a tough spot. Because they really, really want to countersignal this, but they're going to be in they're pretty well over a barrel right now. But this is the stuff where they're going to start, like that fake right-winger backstabbing that we've really been waiting for. This is what's going to get that going. Because way too many of these guys want to say all the right things, but they're implicated in one of the worst money laundering, mass murder operations in history. Here's the list of 4 things agreed to by the U.S. and Russia in their meeting in Saudi Arabia. This is just kind of a broad overview. President Trump wants to stop the killing. The United States wants peace and is using its strength in the world to bring countries together. President Trump is the only leader in the world who can get Ukraine and Russia to agree to that. Now, notice the subtext in this. A lot of this is just kind of generic press release diplomatic language, but notice the subtext. Establish a consultation mechanism to address irritants to our bilateral relationship with the objective of taking steps necessary to normalize the operation of our respective diplomatic missions. A consultation mechanism. So, open diplomatic channels to address irritants to our bilateral relationship. So this is talking about like having an open bilateral relationship and having, whether it's a front channel or back channel communications to be able to address any irritants in our relationship. Anybody who's trying to undermine us maintaining a stable relationship together. To normalize the operation of our respective diplomatic missions. This is a 180-degree reversal from American foreign policy with respect to Russia for as far back as I can remember. They're not just like treating each other as hostiles that are, tensely negotiating like this limited settlement or something. This is a comprehensive overhaul of relations between the United States and Russia. Number 2, appoint respective high-level teams to begin working on a path to ending the conflict in Ukraine as soon as possible in a way that is enduring, sustainable, and acceptable to all sides. And part of this is, I don't think it's mentioned in here, but part of this involves completely restaffing the diplomatic personnel, because there is so much embedded, and this is largely, I think, probably on the United States side, but I'm sure on Russia's side, there is an embedded, innate, deep-seated hostility. And clearly the goal for both leadership teams is to not just not be hostile with one another, but actually to hammer out more than just a peace with Ukraine. They're not just talking about Ukraine here. They're using this negotiation over the Ukraine issue to address the relationship between the U.S. and Russia overall. Lay the groundwork for future cooperation on matters of mutual geopolitical interest and historic economic and investment opportunities, which will emerge from a successful end to the conflict in Ukraine. So, this isn't just we negotiate an end to the conflict with Ukraine and we go our separate ways. Future cooperation on matters of mutual geopolitical interest and historic economic and investment opportunities, which will emerge after that. So this is normalization of relationship and then building and developing that relationship further going forward. The parties to today's meetings pledge to remain engaged to make sure the process moves forward in a timely and productive manner. One phone call followed by one meeting is not sufficient to establish enduring peace. We must take action, and today we took an important step forward. We would like to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for hosting under the leadership of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud. There's a link here. This was a tweet from Patel Patriot, John Harold, and the link to the full document here. This was a press release from the State Department. I got to admit, it's kind of funny to imagine Marco Rubio negotiating with Lavrov. But, you know, my estimation of Rubio has increased a little bit lately. So it's not quite as funny to me as it would have been a few months ago. But it's still kind of funny. You've got like a legitimate, serious, generational diplomat with a guy who, to this point, his greatest claim to fame was being having his manhood questioned in a presidential debate. What was this tab for? There's a thing here from Zelensky. I don't really care. This is just the little weasel creature just whining. It seems like Russia and the U.S. are preparing an ultimatum to Ukraine, talking about Ukraine without Ukraine. Yeah, because you're irrelevant. You're meaningless. You're an actor, literally an actor. You have no power. You're going to be lucky if you survive through the end of the year. But I wanted to highlight this guy here, at Joe Stablishment. He's a small poster, but I don't think he's going to be small for long. He's got a great bit going. Deputy Assistant Undersecretary for Iraq WMD verification, 2003 to present. Contributing writer for The Atlantic and New York Times. He says, "Oh, dear Zelensky, you misunderstand. These aren't ultimatums. They're freedom optimization directives. When wise bureaucrats make decisions about your country without your input, that's peak democracy in action. The less agency you have, the more liberated you become." He's got a brilliant bit, and I've been seeing him all over the place lately, but I had to share this for freedom optimization directives with the trademark symbol. It's so good. Go follow at Joe Stablishment on X. And I've got a couple of more things here related to Europe. Oh, I got something in my nose. It's tickling. So adding color to this whole story is this. Off the Press says, new dozens of NGOs that lost their USAID funding are now turning to the European Union for financial assistance, raising concerns among conservatives in Europe. The NGOs are asking the EU to provide, quote, emergency funding to mitigate the financial shortfalls created by the US aid freeze. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban is vowing not to write checks to the globalist liberal Soros NGO network. The USAID files expose the dark practices of the globalist network. We will not take the bait again, Orban said. And Mike Benz says, very important story and development here. This is the EU offset I've been warning about and predicting. That US-funded blob groups cut off from USAID would quickly turn to EU and NATO grant-making bodies to fund the political influence and censorship ops once financed by USAID. And I had a response to this, but I forgot to pull it up. And I don't know if it's going to be immediately available here. I would have to scroll for a little bit. So basically, what this is going to do, I think, is further drive a wedge between the US and Europe. And it's going to create, ultimately, I think what it's going to do is it's going to make it a lot easier to prosecute a lot of this stuff because it makes it even more treason-like domestically. And it's going to be even more of a pretext for the administration to take much more of a hardline stance against the Europeans. Because, like, think about the sequence of operations here. We defunded this organization, this network of NGOs, because it was revealed that they were engaged in the mass-scale plunder and manipulation of the mass importation of immigrants, illegal immigrants, facilitating an invasion of the country, changing laws, laundering money around for propaganda efforts. We defunded this and we're prosecuting the criminal elements of it. And now you guys are going to start funding it yourselves? And we're supposed to be like allies or we have shared values or something? To whatever extent that the EU begins funding these things, or humanitarianism or whatever, it's just going to more cleanly create this dividing line between the United States and Europe. I think this is the first time I've ever shared a Reason magazine article here. But the headline is, the U.S. is no longer willing to subsidize prosperous countries that won't defend themselves. Picture of Pete Hegseth here. This is from J.D. Tusilli. Tusilli. U.S. tells Europe to handle its own defense. The Trump administration's foreign policy gambits can be baffling. Why rename the Gulf of Mexico? What is this fixation on annexing Greenland? Does anybody really want to find out what happens if we add Canadians to the U.S. Senate? But the president is right that allies have been allowed to shift the cost of their defense to the United States for decades, and they've relied on the U.S. to resolve what are largely European problems. With the U.S. government spending far beyond its means, it's time for our NATO allies to step up, as U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth recently suggested. Of course, the libertarians don't understand these things, which are all very, very easy to understand. But if it means cutting spending, oh yeah, then they're right on board. Quote, the United States remains committed to the NATO alliance and to the defense partnership with Europe, full stop. Hegseth, who served as an infantry officer in Afghanistan and Iraq before taking high-profile roles with Fox News and then with the Trump administration, commented last week at a meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group held in Brussels. But the United States will no longer tolerate an imbalanced relationship which encourages dependency. And this, they know full well in saying this, Hegseth and his speechwriters and the administration, they know full well that saying, we remain fully committed to the NATO alliance and the defense partnership, full stop, and then saying, we will no longer tolerate an imbalanced relationship which encourages dependency, this is nuking the NATO alliance. Hegseth went on to say that any security guarantees negotiated for Ukraine after almost 3 long years of war between that country and invading Russian forces, quote, must be backed by capable European and non-European troops, but only, quote, as part of a non-NATO mission. To be clear, as part of any security guarantee, there will not be U.S. troops deployed to Ukraine. But what really brought the message home for attendees was when the U.S. Defense Secretary emphasized that America has security obligations throughout the world, particularly regarding China. That means, with NATO, the U.S. would focus on, quote, empowering Europe to own responsibility for its own security. To that end, Hegseth urged U.S. allies to exceed the 2% of GDP target for defense spending set by the alliance, the 2% target that, none of them are meeting. You need to not only exceed it, aim for 5%. This is how you blow up NATO without being the ones who are responsible for blowing up NATO. No, we're perfectly happy to stay in this relationship. But you guys aren't gonna foot the bill yourselves We're not going to be equal partners in this? Oh, you're leaving? Oh, I guess, okay. I guess no more NATO. Oh, that's too bad. Hegseth's speech threw, quote, the world's biggest military alliance into disarray, according to the AP. But the message wasn't unanticipated, nor was the reality of competing demands on American resources entirely unappreciated. France's President Emmanuel Macron quickly called a meeting of European leaders, quote, to discuss European security. And that meeting, there's a great breakdown from Alexander Mercouris from the Duran, breaking this meeting down, and it blew up terribly. And if I remember right, I just saw today, just before I went live, that France has now said that they're not going to be sending troops to Ukraine. I'll need to get confirmation on that. But this meeting did not go well. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte agreed Europe and Canada, quote, have not paid enough over the last 40 years. The U.S. is rightly asking for a rebalancing of that. This is interesting. This is not the first time that he has said he's actually, at least verbally, backed what the administration seems to want. Poland, which has historical reasons to fear Moscow's intentions, is already near the 5% target for defense. At least since the end of the Cold War, most European countries have skated by on minimal military expenditures, counting on the United States to handle any threats that might emerge. That situation continued even after Russian troops poured into Ukraine. The British military, the leading U.S. military ally and Europe's biggest defense spender, has only around 150 deployable tanks and perhaps a dozen serviceable long-range artillery pieces, the Wall Street Journal reported in December of 2023. The British military has around 150 deployable tanks and a dozen serviceable long-range artillery pieces. They're not even a real country, man. France, the next biggest spender, has fewer than 90 heavy artillery pieces, equivalent to what Russia loses roughly every month on the Ukraine battlefield. Denmark has no heavy artillery, submarines, or air defense systems. Germany's army has enough ammunition for 2 days of battle. NATO's last annual report reveals the U.S. represents 53% of the GDP of all countries in the alliance, but the U.S. makes 67% of alliance defense expenditures. NATO sets a goal for members to spend 2% of their GDP on defense. Even with rising tensions, only 11 of the alliance's 32 members hit that benchmark in that report. The next report should show more meeting the goal. Among the countries not hitting the 2% mark are Canada, France, and Germany. All wealthy countries, that could significantly contribute to the alliance's defense. Germany claims to have hit the 2% target in its latest budget, but Canada's government reportedly told NATO that it, quote, will never hit the target. It sounds like you're not a real country. Writing about that admission, the Washington Post's Amanda Coletta noted that, quote, nearly all of Canada's 78 Leopard 2 tanks require extensive maintenance and lack spare parts. In supporting Ukraine, European countries gave somewhat more than the U.S., but Europe emphasized financial and humanitarian aid, so the U.S. has offered slightly more military assistance at $67.1 billion U.S. compared to Europe's $65 billion, according to the Kiel Institute for the World Economy. And then the rest of this is just going on about why the United States can't afford it, DOGE, not all Trump administration pronouncements were so well considered. The U.S. reportedly plans to meet with Russian envoys to discuss Ukraine's future without inviting Ukraine or European allies. That's presumptuous and runs the risk that Ukraine just won't stop fighting if it doesn't like the terms. How do these people live in this world? How do we live in this world where we pretend that all of these countries are real and that they're actually like sovereign, independent actors? It just boggles my mind. In response, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky called for the creation of an armed forces of Europe to defend the continent. Yes, little man, you're the one who gets to assemble an armed forces of Europe. And the very last point I've got here is just, it's so very clear now what is happening with Elon coming out. We started getting blips of this early on. Elon came out and went hard after Keir Starmer. And a bunch of retards all said, oh, he's just trying to distract from the H-1B conversation. It was very obvious that there was a lot more going on than that. You flatter yourselves if you think he cared that much. This was clearly a directive sanctioned by the administration to begin putting pressure on those who are actually hostile to American interests, namely the European and British leadership. Remember, Zelensky and representatives from the Labour Party in the UK literally came to the United States and campaigned on behalf of Kamala Harris. You don't think that the administration remembers that? What, now we're just supposed to pretend we're allies? Yeah, fuck off. So this effort going after Starmer and promoting reform, and then going after Germany's leadership and promoting AfD, which Elon led the charge on, and now Vance and Hegseth and others have jumped into the fray. This is very obviously an intentional policy by the administration to destabilize and ultimately overthrow the existing European leadership, which is one of the best things that could happen for the world. The European leadership is a hive of the worst people on the planet who provide nothing of value and just parasitize on everyone else. They don't deserve their station. They don't deserve the breath in their lungs. And I am more than happy to see the administration forcing regime change on them. They're going to take it and they're going to like it. One of the representatives of the administration, Charlie Kirk, says all Germans should vote AfD in the upcoming election. This is for the survival of Germany. Close your borders and protect your culture. And this isn't about the retards don't pick up on what's happening here. It doesn't matter what AfD stands for. It doesn't matter it matters to a limited extent. What matters is that AfD is the no-no party. Their policy platform could be anything. Literally come up with the most insane shit, whatever, it doesn't matter. What matters is that they are the no-no party that the powers that be have said nobody is allowed to participate with. Nobody is allowed to promote them. Nobody is allowed to vote for them. We're gonna try to force them out of the conversation as much as possible. And so the Trump administration's representatives are saying, vote for them. We're giving you the cover to vote for them. Because if they continue their shenanigans, if they do like that one French faggot did, where they try to cancel the election or something, now you've got the U.S. federal government who is going to be performing proctologies on them. And all of this on the backdrop of their currencies collapsing. And you can see this is very clearly a political operation. This is a propaganda work. German women are making TikTok dances in support of the AfD party, the only political party that supports mass deportations. The German media portrays AfD as a far-right party, but most of the positions are normal. They merely also want deportations. They don't just want deportations. They also want, as I understand it, they also want to re-engage Russia for trade, particularly for energy, because the frickin' survival of their people depends upon it. But recall when, shortly before the election here, all the TikToks were going around of all the people doing the YMCA dance. You had all the hot chicks who were out doing the Trump dance. And that's when you could tell the vibe has shifted. It's incredibly powerful on a platform like TikTok to get all the hot chicks going out and dancing and associating themselves with a particular political organization. Because all of the normies, they see that, and that's what normalizes that political organization. So this is happening now in Germany. Now this has happened for a little while. They've had this sort of thing going for a little bit. And to this point, because none of these countries are actually real, they don't have any sort of sanity associated with them at all. They've still managed to crowd these people out and not give them a voice. But it seems to me, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, maybe I'm too optimistic, but I see this very similarly 2, the YMCA dance, the Trump YMCA dance going viral on TikTok in the lead up to the election. The lyrics here. It really can't be that I don't see a single German anymore. Integration is too much. I've had enough of it. I was the only German in my class at high school. How can that be?
Ich habe die AfD gewählt. Tatsächlich war es bei mir eher Protest, weil mir die momentane Politik auf den Sack geht. Die Altparteien das nicht hinbekommen haben. Ne, man merkt es an den ganzen Messerangriffen, an Vergewaltigungen. So, ich bin selber eine Frau. Ich habe Angst, wenn ich nachts alleine rausgehe.
Found with a good husband. You walk porn on the street. You seek our generation.
Can you leave this, please?
Yeah, I can talk, I think.
Einfach nur, weil ich Angst habe, Bahn zu fahren, Angst habe, in die Stadt zu gehen, Angst habe, irgendwas noch in der Öffentlichkeit zu machen. Und die reden davon, dass Leute Angst vor der AfD haben. Die AfD hat niemandem was getan, im Gegensatz zu anderen Menschen. Und die Flüchtlingskrise, das ist unkontrollierte Migration, geht schief. Und ich sage euch, die AfD wird bei der nächsten Wahl noch mehr Prozente bekommen.
Anyways, I'm not going to make you guys listen to that anymore. It gets very old very quickly, but I wanted to get the rest of that out. I think the kids are going to be all right. I'll share with you guys tomorrow a thread from John Carter talking about Canada and the prospect of making the case basically for why the United States wants to annex Canada and the difficulty that Canadian leadership is going to have in preventing it from happening. And he has some very interesting statistics in there on a poll that was done. And you can see a sharp generational gap among Canadians between the young and the old, and their respective positions are very interesting. But by and large, the point here is that across all these different countries, particularly in the West, the youngsters, things are looking very good. I'm old enough to remember when everyone thought that, oh no, as soon as the kids come around, we're going to be stuck in and the most insane types of wokeness ever. No. The kids are going to be way, way more based than their parents, their grandparents were. So that's all I've got for you guys. Do me a favor and hit the like button. We're at 99. We just need one more. Thank you for showing up and watching the Astrolabe. Go follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. Hit the like button on your way out. Do me a favor if you would. Leave me a chat, a comment on the episode afterwards. There's 100. Thank you to whoever that was. The more interaction the channel gets, the better. And if you want to support the show, you can. There's a Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. There's a Cash App link in the description. Or you can join the King Pilled Discord, kingpilled.com. We will have another schizo stream and or a movie night this Friday evening. Be on the lookout for that. You'll want to join the King Pilled Discord. And if you like the conversation I was having earlier about us, our guys needing to coordinate, network, start building out, making plans, and coordinating to begin taking over industries, building new industries, capitalizing on some of the growth potential over the next several years. Come join us. Join us in the King Pill Discord, where we are we're making those sorts of relationships happen. I think that's all I got. So I'm going to leave you guys with the better German song, Ausländer Rausch and Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America